Chapter 12:22. The 12th Battle, West Sky Peak Academy's Pei Yi wins. The monstrous clamorous noise was like endless waves that were ceaselessly set off, and it resounded throughout the entire Star Pillar Peak. The earth-shattering cheers were incomparably vast, and the countless supporters of Pei Yi were especially excited and crazy. Senior brother Pei Yi is the strongest. West Sky Peak Academy will definitely win. Champion! Champion! At this moment, Pei Yi's momentum was pushed to an unprecedented height. Even when Wang Li and Qi Qianying won, the crowd didn't explode like this. On the other hand, the disciples of Beichen Peak Academy were silent. All of them gritted their teeth and clenched their fists with resentment in their eyes. No one had expected that Wu Yan would be defeated so thoroughly, especially under the circumstances that she had seized the initiative. Not only was she unable to defeat Pei Yi with 8-star jade attacks in a row, she had instead suffered great humiliation. The words "the number one disciple of Beichen Peak Academy is nothing but trash" caused everyone in Beichen Peak Academy to lose all face. They were furious, but there was nothing they could do. Their hearts were filled with a deep sense of powerlessness. On the high sky arena, Pei Yi was like the bright moon among the numerous stars, dazzling and imposing. His legs that had been petrified by the feathered serpent had already recovered to their original state, and his entire body emitted a terrifying domineering aura. Even Wang Li had put away the playful and lazy expression from before, and a trace of seriousness faintly surged between his brows. Qi Qianying's attention didn't completely descend onto Pei Yi. Her clear eyes roamed about as she gazed at the handsome and extraordinary young figure on the southern viewing platform with astonishment. Everyone in the surroundings was looking at Wu Yan's injuries, but only he stood there motionlessly. His deep eyes were like a vast galaxy, making it hard for others to fathom what he was thinking. On the Star Peak. Ha 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 ha. The West Sky Peak Master, Sidhu Song, laughed complacently, and he didn't care about the North Sky Peak Master, Yuan Shang, whose face was ashen. So what if he lost 2 battles in a row? So what if Yi Yao and Long Xuanshuang pulled Kai Feng and Yang Ao down from the Heaven Martial rankings? It was enough for Wu Yan to lose miserably. Just Pei Yi alone was enough to recover all the face he had lost. Mysterious East Peak Master Ao Yunzhuang and South Spirit Peak Master Ning Qiushui exchanged glances, and could not help but shake their heads and chuckle. Although Sidhu Song's character had always been like this, it could not be denied that Pei Yi's ruthlessness caused others to feel fearful. Next is the 13th match. After an earth-shattering hubbub, the next round of competition began. Although the remaining matches were also quite intense, after the battle between Pei Yi and Wu Yan, many people's expectations had been greatly reduced. After the ups and downs of emotions that were neither high nor low, the first round of the top 16 finally came to an end. Countless people's eyes were filled with anticipation as they looked at the 16 names that were arranged on the large light screen in the sky above the Star Pillar Peak. Among the 16 people, the most surprising thing was that 4 of them were new disciples. They occupied a quarter of the total quota. This kind of situation was unprecedented in the history of the martial organization. What was also surprising was that after 16 rounds of fierce battles, quite a few peak geniuses on the heavenly martial list had actually been eliminated. Apart from Qiu Xingyi and Lu Chen, who did not participate, Ning Yu and Lu Liao were eliminated in the top 32. Then, Kai Feng, Yang Ao, and Wu Yan were defeated. There were a total of 7 disciples on the heavenly martial list. In other words, only 8 disciples on the heavenly martial list had successfully entered the top 16. Nearly half of them were eliminated. This was also the first time this had happened. It was only the first day of the sect battle, and there were already so many surprises. Everyone could not help but feel that there might be unexpected variables later on. First of all, congratulations to the disciples who have successfully advanced to the top 16. Of course, those who have been eliminated are also worthy of our praise. Today's competition has ended. Tomorrow will be the battle for the top 8. Everyone, please wait and see. Elder Lu announced loudly. Soon after, the first day of the sect battle came to an end amidst the loud hubbub. The gradually dispersed crowd was like a receding tide, retreating in the direction where they came from. The high-level elders and masters of the various peak academies also bid farewell to each other. However, everyone could see that almost all the elders of the Beichen Peak Academy had a black face. In the next few days, the martial faction was destined to not be peaceful. Everyone was talking about the match during the day with great relish. Looks like the Beichen Peak Academy is going to be last again this year. They really won't be able to make a comeback. Who said that? Aren't there still 3 people who advanced? Just those 3 newcomers? They will definitely kneel in the top 8 tomorrow, at least 2. That's right. I think only that Yi Yao has a little hope of advancing. Most people's discussion was focused on the Beichen Peak Academy. This year's Beichen Peak Academy was especially surprising. The strongest Wu Yan fell in the first round, and 3 newcomers advanced. It inevitably gave people a funny feeling. That guy called Chu Hen, I feel that he is not simple at all. What do you mean? Didn't he just shine last year when he first joined the sect? He seems to be just like that. Not necessarily. He is in the 24th division. Ning Yu and Lu Liao were both eliminated there. That doesn't mean anything. Senior sister Ning Yu didn't say that Chu Hen eliminated her. As for senior brother Lu Liao, it is even more suspicious. I think he will only know what happened when he wakes up. However, even if it was Chu Hen who did it, he would at most replace Lu Liao's ranking and would only be 9th. He is not even as good as that Yi Yao and Long Xuan. That makes sense. The Beichen Peak Academy will ultimately be at the bottom. But then again, senior brother Pei Yi is really ruthless. If he is not ruthless, then he is not called Pei Yi. How many people have you seen who offend him still have a good life? In the evening, Bluestone Peak. At the foot of a mountain, the rocks were jade-colored. There were courtyards and pavilions built on the peak, and the environment was quite quiet. Dean Luotsang, how is senior brother Wu Yan? In the spacious room, the lights were brightly lit. Chu Hen, Wu Mian, Yi Yao, Long Xuan, and the siblings Zhao Qingyi were all gathered here. At the edge of the bed, Dean Luotsang felt Wu Yan's pulse with one hand. His brows were tightly knitted and his expression was solemn. Wu Yan was lying on her side on the bed. Her face was as pale as paper, and her lips were wrinkled without a trace of blood. Her body was wrapped in a thick layer of bandages. Dean, can you say something? Seeing that the other party did not answer, Wu Mian could not help but urge. Pausing for a moment, Luotsang let out a deep breath. His deep eyes slightly relaxed as he raised his finger and nodded. The situation is still all right. It's not as bad as I imagined. Although my internal organs were injured, fortunately, the major meridians are not too seriously damaged. If I recuperate quietly for a period of time, it will not affect my future cultivation. Hua. As soon as these words came out, everyone breathed a sigh of relief. Wu Yan's heart that was hanging in the air also calmed down. After all, for Wu Xiu, the thing he was most worried about was losing his cultivation. Don't walk around for the next few days. Rest well. Luotsang stood up and said. Wu Yan nodded and replied gratefully, "Thank you, Dean," and, his voice paused and his eyes revealed a little loneliness, "I'm really sorry." Sorry? Hearing these 2 words, everyone was faintly stunned. Especially Wu Mian. Others might not know, but he knew very well that Wu Yan had always been working very hard to hold up the banner of Beichen Peak Academy. In the eyes of others, there was nothing wrong with it. But in Wu Yan's eyes, it was a kind of responsibility. Master should be very disappointed, right? Wu Yan murmured. Luotsang could not help but be moved. He did not know how to answer, because as Wu Yan's master, Peak Master Yuan Shang did not come. Have a good rest. I'll leave first. And The corners of Wu Yan's mouth rose, revealing a hearty smile. He glanced at the others and said, "You guys send the dean off for me. Also, junior brother Chu Hen, stay for a while. I have something to say to you." Everyone stared blankly as they looked at Chu Hen in astonishment. Although they were a little confused, they did not ask much and followed Dean Luo Tsang out of the room. Soon, only Chu Hen and Wu Yan were left in the room. The candlelight on the table flickered like a beautiful elf. Chapter 12:23. Ning Yu and Lu Liao were both eliminated by you, right? Wu Yan's eyes were like the candlelight on the table, fiery and determined. Chu Hen did not answer, taking it as a tacit agreement. Wu Yan nodded and heaved a sigh of relief. In the entire Beichen Peak Academy, the person I can't see through the most is you. Wu Yan said calmly, but I still have to advise you, if you meet Pei Yi in the next battle, it's better for you to give up. Give up? Chu Hen raised his eyebrows, a little surprised that Wu Yan would say such words to him. I know you're strong, even stronger than me, but the current you can't beat Pei Yi. Compared to Wang Li and Qi Qianying, Pei Yi is more ruthless and his methods are more vicious. If it was me, I might have spared my life, but if it was you, I can't imagine what he would do. Wu Yan was very clear about Pei Yi's character. The entire martial sect also knew about the relationship between Yang Ao and Lu Liao with Pei Yi. Just based on the fact that Chu Hen had crippled Lu Liao, Pei Yi would not let it go. I hope you can bear with it for now. I believe that with your talent, one day you will surpass him. At that time, you can wash away the shame of our Beichen Peak Academy today. Wu Yan's expression was especially solemn. Today, he had personally witnessed Pei Yi's strength. Now, as a senior brother, he was advising Chu Hen. There was concern and high hopes in it. However, in response to Wu Yan's advice, Chu Hen smiled and nodded. I understand, senior brother Wu Yan, have a good rest. Wu Yan nodded slightly. Go. Goodbye. With that, Chu Hen turned and left. Looking at Chu Hen's disappearing figure, Wu Yan felt somewhat helpless. Although Chu Hen seemed to have agreed with her, his eyes remained firm from the beginning to the end, without the slightest change in expression. She still couldn't see through him. She couldn't see through his cultivation level. She couldn't see through his inner thoughts. Hopefully, Chu Hen would listen to his advice. As of now, no one other than Wang Li and Qi Qianying could compete with Pei Yi in the sect war. He left Bluestone Peak. Chu Hen separated from Long Xuanshuang, Zhao Qingyi, Wu Mian and the rest. After returning to their respective residences, Chu Hen also returned to Sky Observation Peak. Night fell, and the stars in the sky shone like a brocade. Chu Hen stood at the top of the cliff. His profound eyes seemed to take in the starry sky. Although Wu Yan had good intentions, the other party's words didn't affect his mood at all. He looked up into the sky while the corners of his mouth curled up slightly, and it was a wisp of an arc that was cold and fierce like a curved blade. A moment later, bright candlelight flickered in the spacious cave. Chu Hen sat upright on the platform as he adjusted his breathing, and the aura he emitted moved rhythmically. It was extremely stable, and it was vigorous and boundless like a river. Buzz! Suddenly, a wisp of white light flickered between Chu Hen's brows, and then his Naiwen palace opened up, causing a strand of Reiki energy that was vast like the tide to effuse out. Subsequently, Chu Hen's mind focused as he closed his eyes lightly, and then his consciousness seemed to have charged through the boundless river of time and sunk into his Naiwen palace. Whoosh! In the blink of an eye, an independent space that seemed like a world of mist appeared within Chu Hen's mind. Boundless immortal energy covered the heavens and the earth, and it emitted a dazzling golden light that was like the rosy clouds. The vast and boundless land was beautiful with mountains and rivers, and it was overflowing with vitality. Numerous streams formed from the convergence of Reiki energy and rivers crisscrossed each other like stars in the sky, and it was extraordinarily grand. The space within his Naiwen palace wasn't inferior to his Violet palace at all. It gave others the feeling that it was like a second Violet Palace. Chu Hen secretly exclaimed in admiration. The path of cultivation was indeed boundless and mysterious. No matter if it was the Violet Palace of True Essence or the Naiwen Palace, they only occupied a corner of the human body, but they were able to contain 3,000 spirit technique. It was like looking at the sky from the bottom of a well, peering into the mysteries of heaven and earth, and knowing countless techniques. OM. A slight energy fluctuation quietly spread out from the center of his Naiwen Palace. Following that, two incomparably huge towering trees quietly appeared in Chu Hen's field of vision. This Dao tree was completely crystalline and translucent. Its branches, leaves, and trunk seemed as if they were constructed from the purest spirit jade. Every inch of it emitted a beautiful and luxurious light, and it was covered with mysterious and ancient talismans. Even every single leaf overflowed with a divine radiance. And beside it there was another huge tree. This huge tree's color was rather dark, and its entire body was surrounded by countless spirit tattoos. Although the Reiki energy it emitted wasn't as pure as the first tree, the degree of grandeur and scale of its aura was absolutely not something the first tree could compare with. It wasn't hard to determine. The first tree was Chu Hen's Heaven-level Rune Master Street Tree. The second tree was Lu Liao's Zong-level Rune Master Street Tree. Buzz. At this moment, Chu Hen's street tree suddenly emitted a dense black light. The strange black light was like a demonic flame, quickly rising up. Condensed black light beams shot out, like countless dark and cold giant chains, firmly entangling Lu Liao's street tree. Rumble. Lu Liao's street tree emitted a strong repelling force, like a fiercely struggling beast. The entire Naiwen Palace was trembling uneasily. The wanton release of Reiki energy swept out in all directions, and the ground cracked open one after another, but in the next moment, the chaotic momentum was suppressed, and the mighty black vortex was like a raging storm that covered the sky. Under the suppression of the chaotic body's bloodline boundary, the two huge street trees slowly merged together. The branches and leaves merged together. The tree trunk overlapped with the tree trunk, thousands of beautiful runes flew in the air like a meteor shower, intertwining with each other, emitting a shocking aura. The two different Reiki energy were like a compatible convergence of a majestic river, constantly strengthening, constantly subliming, and then exploding with a continuous aura like the sea. Sky Observation Peak. Inside the spacious cave, the originally calm space became extremely turbulent. The sand and stones on the ground flew up, the stone tables and stone chairs were flipped over and fell to the ground. Buzz! The space violently trembled. A majestic Reiki energy rune rapidly expanded from Chu Hen's body. Countless deep web-like cracks immediately appeared on the rock walls and ground in all directions. The entire Sky Observation Peak was faintly shaking. Chu Hen's eyes lifted. A pair of black pupils flashed with a holy golden light. An aura that was countless times stronger than a heavenly pattern master's also erupted. Zone-level Rune Master. At this moment, Lu Liao's street tree completely disappeared. This also meant that the 10th-ranked Zone-level Rune Master on the Heaven Marshal list would forever be a cripple, with no possibility of making a comeback. Chapter 12:24. Sky Observation Peak. Although it looked calm, it was not calm at all. At this time, Chu Hen's Naiwen Palace had undergone a tremendous change. The street tree, which was originally thousands of feet tall, had grown more than twice as long as before. Its power was shocking, domineering, and it seemed to be able to support the sky. The huge roots of the tree, which were like dragons, went deep into the ground. The strong tree crown, which was like a giant umbrella, reached the sky. The thick and solid trunk of the street tree was covered with complicated runes, like ancient characters, and people could not help but think about the meaning of the characters on it. A long and deep river flowed slowly around the street tree. What was gathered in the river was an endless stream of spiritual power. At this moment, Chu Hen seemed to have become one with the street tree, and his mind was connected. It was as if the saint's soul in the purple palace of true origin could clearly observe every subtle change in power in the Naiwan palace. Immediately, with a thought from Chu Hen, the street tree glowed with a bright light. The runes on it flickered, and thousands of rays of light intertwined together, then converged to form the silhouette of a human figure. The silhouette slowly took shape, and in the end it showed the appearance of Chu Hen. His whole body was surrounded by the light of runes, and his aura was extraordinary, like the soul of the street tree. Is this the Naiwan palace of a guru-level rune master? Chu Hen murmured in a low voice, and his eyes were filled with vigor. Compared to a heaven-level rune master, it could be said to be on a completely different level. Then, Chu Hen put his palms together, and the street tree behind him released a dazzling brilliance. Millions of leaves swayed, and gave off a crisp sound like a silver bell in the wind. The thick spirit fog that pervaded the world quietly dispersed. Wherever one looked, there was a beautiful landscape, and the sky was vast. Thousands of runes floated out, like dancing butterflies. The runes were like a rain of petals, and wherever they went, they actually condensed into flowers, trees, fishes, butterflies, deer in an instant. The dark and gloomy Naiwan palace was filled with vigor and vitality. Powerful Reiki energy ripples emanated from every inch of the area. Similar to the primordial chi of an ancient realm powerhouse, the Reiki energy of a zone-level rune master was similarly inexhaustible and inexhaustible. The rate at which it was produced had reached an extremely rapid level. Buzz. The moment Chu Hen opened his eyes, an invisible and powerful aura caused the surrounding air flow to change abruptly. Feeling the dense power in his body, he could not help but reveal a knowing smile. However, at this moment, a figure stumbled into the cave in a hurry. Before the person could regain his balance, he was already screaming at the top of his lungs. "Where is he? Where is he? Come out quickly!" Needless to say, this voice came from Wu Mian. Chu Hen raised his eyebrows slightly, and immediately got up and walked towards the door. Seeing Chu Hen walk out, Wu Mian almost cried and shouted with a choked voice, "I say, boss, you're still alive? I thought something happened to you last night." "What's wrong?" Chu Hen asked in confusion. "You're asking me what's wrong? I'm asking you what's wrong. Do you know what time it is now? Are you not going to participate in the quarterfinals?" Chu Hen was startled, and his gaze swept outside. Only then did he realize that the sky outside was already bright. The gentle sunlight shone on the cave entrance. It's already so late? Merging with Lu Liao's street tree last night, he had unknowingly lost track of time. What are you still standing there for?" Wu Mian laid on the ground and waved his arms anxiously. "Go! Go quickly! It's not your turn yet. If you don't go now, it'll be too late." Hua! Before Wu Mian could finish his words, a wave of rapid air whizzed past, and Chu Hen instantly disappeared from where he was standing. The corner of Wu Mian's eyes twitched, and he almost clenched his teeth in anger. "Boss, can't you help me up first?" Star Peak. It was a sea of people, and the crowd was moving. A black mass of people gathered around the soaring firmament battle platform like tidewater. The layout was similar to yesterday's. The upper echelon elders of the martial sects and the 8 Peak Court Masters were on the northern side of the Star Peak viewing platform, and a large light screen that looked like a square mirror floated in the air. What was different from yesterday was that there were only a few names left on the light screen. In the new round of the sect battle, the list of advanced cultivators would also be refreshed. At this moment, an extremely intense battle was erupting on the soaring cloud battle platform in the middle. Waves of cheers rang out from the crowd below the stage. "Senior brother Qin Yan will definitely win. Good luck, senior brother Shao Alliance." No need to shout. No matter how much you shout, Shao Alliance won't be able to win senior brother Qin Yan. That's right, senior brother Qin Yan is ranked 7th on the Sky Martial list, and his Li Fire Blade technique is superb. How could the Shao Alliance, which is ranked 11th, be his match? Qin Yan of Dongxian Peak. He was ranked 7th on the Sky Marshal list with his swift and fiercely fire blade technique. His opponent was none other than the genius Shao Alliance of Shiqiong Peak, who was known as Young Master Qingqing. The two of them could be said to be evenly matched on the stage, and sparks flew everywhere. Huge dark iron chains surged up and down like dragons and pythons, like iron chains crossing the river, emitting a powerful pressure. Although Shao Alliance's attacks were dense and tricky, Qin Yan was able to deal with them with ease. His palms constantly transformed into flaming blades, and each move was extremely fierce and domineering. Ranked 7th and 11th, there was a difference of 4 in the middle. This should have been a battle without much suspense, but what was surprising was that, after an intense battle, Shao Alliance didn't seem to be at a disadvantage. So what if he's ranked 7th? Let me ask you, who doesn't know that young Master Qingqing's sky-capturing holy physique excels at striking after the opponent has struck? The longer they fight, the harder it will be for the opponent. That's right, senior brother Shao Alliance will definitely win. Boom! A violent energy explosion spread out from the fighting ring. Qin Yan and Xiao Meng's attacks collided head-on. Shockwaves surged into the sky, and strong gales were like tidal waves. Both of them retreated backwards at high speed. Shao Alliance's eyes turned cold as he shouted in a deep voice. Demon subduing sealing technique. Swoosh! In an instant, thick chains broke through the surface of the stage, converging towards Qin Yan from all directions. It was as if dozens of dark and cold black dragon pythons intertwined and advanced, like a huge birdcage, trapping Qin Yan within. Every chain was more than 1 meter wide. They surrounded him from the inside out. The chains rolled around each other, forming a huge iron chain ball with a diameter of more than 300 meters. Countless beautiful and mysterious talismans flickered and appeared. The iron chain ball converged at an extremely fast speed, like an ancient barrier seal that was about to trap the opponent within. But in the next instant, a violent and domineering aura erupted like a volcano. Fire whirlwind slash! Qin Yan's shocked and furious voice exploded in everyone's ears. Suddenly, a monstrous and majestic flaming saber light swept out from the inside of the huge iron chain ball. The rapidly rotating flaming saber light was like a storm whirlpool that could destroy everything. Countless ring-shaped saber lights flew out and continuously launched fierce attacks from the inside. Boom! Bang! An incomparably intense and heavy explosion swept out in all directions on the coiling sky combat arena, and it was accompanied by a fierce and scorching gale that crushed space. Numerous material circular blade lights completely tore the enormous black iron chain ball apart bit by bit. Countless pieces of the iron chain exploded. An earth-shattering and majestic sword gleam shocked everyone. The eyes of all the Dongxian Peak disciples lit up. Senior brother Qin Yan is senior brother Qin Yan. How can such insignificant tricks hurt him? The battle is about to end. Buzz buzz. Hot air swirls that continuously piled up quickly surrounded Qin Yan's body. His eyes were like blazing flames. His palms came together, and a rapidly expanding flame blade extended to a length of several hundred meters. He looked coldly at Shao Alliance in front of him. You should be proud of yourself for being able to last so long against me. But unfortunately, you can't beat me, heh? As soon as he finished speaking, a mocking smile appeared on Shao Alliance's face. I'm afraid it's too early for you to be happy. Limitless, Arctic Storm. Chapter 12:25. Sun Luo, Extreme Cold Storm. Along with Shao Alliance's mocking laughter, Lin Feng's expression changed. In an instant, a surging cold air swept over like a terrifying undercurrent that originated from the bottom of a deep-sea glacier. An extremely cold chill spread out in all directions. The hearts of everyone present trembled violently. Boom! Hua! Frost roared, and the temperature suddenly dropped to freezing point. The cold ice cyclone was like a white nebula whirlpool that enveloped the entire numinous sky fighting ring. Crack! The dense cold air almost tore the space apart, and a thick layer of ice quickly covered the fighting ring. Qin Yan's expression changed. The huge flaming blade that was formed between his palms was directly crushed. The vigorous and domineering aura met the 10,000-year cold current, and the surging aura was immediately suppressed. Following that, even Qin Yan's body was surrounded by ice and snow. This is? What a terrifying ice attribute power! Many martial ancestor realm disciples below the ring were shocked. Even though they were below the ring, they only felt the bone-piercing cold. Some of the disciples with weaker cultivations even had a thin layer of ice crystals condensed on their bodies. It was hard to imagine how terrifying the temperature of the fighting ring would be. This is not pure ice attribute power. It's Sun Luo power. What? Sun Luo power? That's right. I heard that when Senior Brother Shao Alliance went to the Immortal Devil Tomb to carry out a mission, he had an intense battle with the 24 blood demon guards of the demon clan. He even obtained the treasure refined by Sun Luo King, the Four-Soul Spirit. Yes, I also heard about this. It seems that there were four soul spirits with different attribute. The other 3 fell into the hands of Han Yun Sect, Profound Yang Palace, and Heaven Gathering Pavilion. Right when everyone was shocked, a monstrous and powerful aura suddenly arose in the sky above the soaring sky arena that was enveloped by ice and snow. Boundless ice vortexes gathered the power of a myriad worlds and condensed together, and then numerous enormous ice pillars with shocking auras rose from the arena. Rumble! Heaven and earth trembled, and the sky was uneasy. Pillars of ice rose into the air one after another. They were arranged in an orderly fashion and connected to each other. It was like a huge cage that trapped a ferocious beast, trapping Qin Yan within. Every icicle was 1,000 meters tall, standing tall on the high firmament battle platform. It was as if they pierced through the clouds. It was incomparably magnificent and imposing. Qin Yan's face darkened, and the flames of fury in his eyes rose once again. The giant flame blade in his hand exuded boundless rage. Humph, you're just trying to act mysterious. Holy flame slash. Buzz, intense energy fluctuations filled the sky, and heat waves that soared into the sky surged. All of the ice crystals and frost around Qin Yan melted away, violent saber waves surged in all directions. Qin Yan's palms joined together to form the heaven-severing blade, and he slashed down furiously. The terrifying saber aura that was like a volcanic eruption soared into the sky, and an arc-shaped saber light that could destroy heaven and earth tore through the air, surging like waves. In an instant, all the giant icicles were broken and shattered. Like a collapsing snowy mountain, countless broken icicles shattered inch by inch, swirling in the air and rolling down. The people below the stage were shocked, and all of them wanted to retreat. At this moment, the dozen or so Grandmaster Realm Tattoo Masters on Star Peak put their palms together at the same time, and they formed seals with their fingers. Buzz! Rapid air currents flowed, and with the high firmament battle platform as the center, an incomparably huge, illusory, transparent, fog-like light screen appeared at the edges of the 4 spectator stands. All of the chaotic shockwaves and shattered icicles that spilled out from the stage were blocked in front of them. At the same time, dark chains that exuded a chilling aura shot out of the majestic icicles that exploded one after another on the battle platform. Each of the chains shone with a cold, bright light, and they swayed with mysterious and complicated runes. An incomparably powerful pressure pressed down on Qin Yan, who was at the center. Qin Yan's expression changed, and before he could react, black chains that resembled iron chains that spanned the sky crashed into his body. Bang! Bang! One hit followed another, and each hit was stronger than the last. The violent impact swept out, and every black chain that was more than a meter thick smashed into Qin Yan's body. The protective layer of true origin energy that covered Qin Yan's body was immediately smashed into pieces. Qin Yan, who had lost his shield, was even more powerless. Every time the chains crashed into him, It was as if they contained the power of a thunderbolt. Bang! After more than a dozen violent collisions, Qin Yan's chest and back were continuously attacked by the chains. Large mouthfuls of blood gushed out of his mouth, and his body fell back and forth in the air powerlessly. The people below the stage were all shocked. This was especially so for the disciples of East Profound Peak Academy. All of their eyes were wide open, and they clenched their fists tightly. On the other hand, the people from West Profound Peak Academy cheered in unison, and they were extremely excited. Looks like the 7th place on the Heaven Martial leaderboard is going to change hands. Senior Brother Xiao is too amazing. Bang! Accompanied by the heaviest and most violent sound, a black chain fell from the sky like a bolt of lightning, and it firmly swept across Qin Yan's back. A circle of vigorous black energy ripples surged in the air, and a domineering and violent impact poured down. Qin Yan was like a sandbag that had been smashed, and he fell heavily onto the arena that was covered in ice. Boom! He landed heavily on the ground, and the layer of ice cracked open, and a huge pit sunk in. Scarlet blood quickly lost its temperature in the cracks in the ice, and it condensed into red crystal flowers that were especially dazzling. Looks like I've won. A playful and disdainful laugh came out of Xiaoming's mouth. He stood high in the air, and he looked down at Qin Yan with a proud attitude. The latter was covered in blood, and there were many fractures all over his body. Even his internal organs had suffered serious injuries. Qin Yan raised his head with difficulty, and his eyes were filled with anger and a strong sense of unwillingness. Many people below the stage furrowed their brows. This bastard, isn't he too heavy-handed? He doesn't treat Senior Brother Qin Yan as a human at all. That's right. It's one thing if the two of them have a grudge against each other, but they clearly have no enmity with each other in the past. Yet they are still so ruthless. A loss is a loss. What do you have to say? There's no rule in the sect war that says we can't be ruthless. Even if we're going to kill, there's nothing to say. While everyone was feeling indignant for Qin Yan, there were also many people who refuted him. The competition between Wu Zongs was cruel. In the past, the number of geniuses who had fallen was innumerable. In the sect war, even if they killed each other, no one would say anything. Natural selection, survival of the fittest. This was the unchanging truth of the world. The winner would enjoy the cheers and applause, while the loser would dejectedly leave. When Elder Lu announced that the winner was the Shao Alliance of the West Dome Peak Academy, the entire Star Peak was filled with enthusiastic applause. Senior Brother Shao Alliance will definitely win. The West Sky Peak Academy is the strongest. Congratulations to Senior Brother Shao Alliance for advancing into the top 8. 7th on the Heaven Martial list. Hearing the cheers below the stage, Shao Alliance's eyes were filled with complacency. However, at this moment, Shao Alliance glanced out of the corner of his eyes, and a trace of coldness could not help but surge out from between his brows. He saw a young figure suddenly appear somewhere in the southern viewing platform. Although the figure's aura was steady and restrained, for some reason, Shao Alliance's heart was inexplicably restless, especially when he saw the other party's face and eyes that were as calm as water. Shao Alliance's heart faintly surged with a trace of unease. Big Brother Chuhen, you're here. At the same time, Yi Yao's eyes lit up as she shouted in joy. Chapter 12:26. Big Brother Chuhen, you're here. Just as young Master Qinqing defeated the 7th ranker of the Heaven Martial ranking, Fire Blade Qin Yan, Chuhen arrived from Sky Observation Peak. The commotion in the arena was earth-shattering. It was especially explosive. Chuhen smiled at Yi Yao. Long Xuan, Zhao Qingyi and Zhao Qinkai also walked over. Why are you here so late? Zhao Qingyi asked. Chuhen shook his head and smiled. I was too focused on training and forgot the time. The few of them were stunned. He could forget the time? Isn't the other party taking the sect war too lightly? How's the situation? I didn't miss it, right? Chu Hen asked. The three of you haven't had your turn yet. Qingkai has already gone up. Oh? Did she win? Zhao Qingyi glanced at Zhao Qingkai, who was pouting, and shook her head. If she won, she wouldn't look like a resentful wife. Chu Hen smiled. The opponent is very strong, right? The sixth ranker of the Heaven Martial ranking, Wen Tao, only lasted 10 moves. It was obviously 12 moves. Zhao Qingkai glared at her brother Zhao Qingyi, hinting her not to expose her scars again. The few of them couldn't help but burst into laughter. Losing to the sixth ranker of the Heaven Martial ranking was not shameful. Moreover, Zhao Qingcai's performance in the match against Han Fei yesterday was also remarkable. Fourth match, Beichen Peak Academy Long Xuanshuang vs South Spiritual Peak Academy Luobin. Hua! Following Elder Lu's loud announcement, the already heated atmosphere immediately became even more explosive. Especially the Beichen Peak Academy disciples, their eyes couldn't help but light up. Junior sister Long is going up. Finally, the cold beauty. She's definitely going to win. After yesterday's exciting battle with Yang Ao, Long Xuanshuang, who had not been noticed before, became famous. Exceptional talent, a powerful bloodline boundary, coupled with a cold and elegant temperament and appearance. All kinds of brilliance gathered on her body, causing her popularity to increase countless times in less than a day. Everyone's expectations of her grew higher and higher. It's Luo Bin, ranked 14th on the Heaven Martial ranking. Junior apprentice sister Long, be careful. Zhao Qingyi reminded him solemnly. Although Long Xuanshuang had defeated Yang Ao, who was ranked 10th on the list, this did not mean that he could let his guard down. After all, disciples who were able to enter the heavenly martial list were not ordinary geniuses. Maybe the other party had hidden a trump card. Just take the Shao Alliance, for example. They had unexpectedly taken down the 7th-ranked Qin Yan. Long Xuanshuang raised her head slightly and glanced at Chu Hen. The latter smiled and nodded in acknowledgement. Then, under the gazes of the crowd, she flew up and steadily landed on the soaring sky battle stage. Because the extreme cold storm released by the Shao Alliance had not receded, the entire stage was still covered with a thick layer of ice. In addition to Long Xuanshuang's own ice attribute energy, it gave people the feeling that the entire battle stage was within her domain. At the same time, her opponent, Luo Bin, also stepped onto the stage. Luo Bin had a dignified appearance and an outstanding temperament. However, at this moment, there was an indescribable uneasiness in his expression. Yesterday, he had personally witnessed the strength of Long Xuanshuang's sacred body bloodline. Even Yang Ao could not last more than 10 moves against her. Adding on the cold, profound body that was everywhere, it had unknowingly given Luo Bin quite a bit of pressure. Junior apprentice sister Long, please advise me. Luo Bin's gaze slightly darkened as the true origin energy in his body quietly circulated. Long Xuanshuang nodded slightly and opened her red lips slightly, saying, Senior apprentice brother Luo, please. As soon as his voice fell, Luo Bin's true origin energy suddenly burst out like a stormy sea. His figure moved and instantly left behind an afterimage. Along with a wild and fierce wind, he immediately swept in front of Long Xuanshuang and struck out several palms in succession. The palm shadows overlapped in the air, and the ferocious power impact was like a torrent of water. The people below the stage could not help but narrow their eyes. It was very obvious that Luo Bin intended to make the first move. Layers upon layers of palm energy surged over. Long Xuanshuang's phoenix eyes slightly raised and a cold ice vortex surrounded her body. The ice vortex was like a ring-shaped storm, and with a stirring momentum, it met the powerful palm energy of the opponent. Boom! Bang! The cold current was rampant and the cold air was like a fountain. Two different forces collided with each other. Luo Bin's palm energy was instantly torn to pieces, and a cyclone that resembled the roar of ice rapidly spread out. The ice on the stage cracked inch by inch, and was sucked into the ice cyclone. It turned into countless crystal-clear frost blades that covered the sky and the earth as they flew towards the opponent. Luo Bin's expression changed. He felt a bone-chilling coldness pouring into his body. He quickly retreated to the back. However, in the next moment, a thick ice wall overflowing with cold air suddenly rose from the stage behind Luo Bin. Luo Bin was shocked. Just as he was about to leap into the sky, more than a dozen large ice cones fell from the sky, one after another, diagonally across the sky, and crashed down. Damn it! Luo Bin cursed in a low voice and dodged with agility. Boom! Each ice pillar was dozens of meters long and 1 or 2 meters wide. The tip was sharp like a giant cold nail. The strong impact penetrated the ground and deeply penetrated the ice layer. Many people below the stage felt their hearts in their throat. If they were hit, it would probably not feel good. Bang, bang, bang. In an instant, the huge platform was covered with ice pillars that emitted a chilling aura. Just as Luo Bin was about to launch a counterattack after dodging all the ice pillars, the overwhelming wind blades had already arrived in front of him with a whistling sound. Luo Bin's pupils suddenly trembled. What came into view was the dense frost leaf flying blade. "I'm finished!" He couldn't help but exclaim. Hua! In the next moment, all the dense frost leaf flying blades that were pouncing toward the opponent stopped less than a finger's length away from the opponent's body. All the attacks immediately came to a standstill. Everyone's heart skipped a beat. They all looked at Long Xuanxuang, who was on the other side. She raised her wrist and waved her hand. The countless wind blades and ice blades that floated around Luo Bin immediately collapsed and scattered. An uproar quietly broke out under the stage. Everyone's face revealed a look of surprise. Luo Bin, who was sweating profusely, also let out a heartfelt sigh of relief. He looked at Long Xuanxuang in front of him with a look of admiration. He then cupped his fists and said, "Thank you, Junior Long, for showing mercy. You let me win." Long Xuanxuang also responded. The huge difference in strength caused the battle to end in a very short time. This was within most people's expectations. Long Xuanxuang won. But to everyone's surprise, she won so easily. Of course, this was also related to the pressure Luo Bin had to endure. He didn't have the time to use any powerful moves. Long Xuanxuang didn't give him any chance. The winner is Beichen Peak Academy's Long Xuanxuang. Elder Lu announced the result in a loud voice. It could be seen that he was especially satisfied with Long Xuanxuang's performance. After all, he was the one who exempted Long Xuanxuang from the mission assessment in the Qinxing province and directly recruited her into the martial ancestor realm. He also played a part in this. Junior Long, good job. Congratulations, Junior Long, for advancing to the top 8. The atmosphere in the entire Beichen Peak Academy was especially lively. As the first disciple to fight her way into the top 8, Long Xuanxuang had already received the recognition of countless people. However, compared to the disciples, the higher-ups of the Beichen Peak Academy felt completely different. The reason was very simple. They didn't think much of Long Xuanxuang before. For a newcomer who didn't focus on training to suddenly shine in a peak competition like the sect battle, to a certain extent, it was a slap to their faces. It was not an exaggeration to say that they had eyes but failed to see. On the Star Peak viewing platform. Haha, Peak Master Yuan Shang doesn't seem to be very happy? Sidu Song, the West Dome Peak Master, smiled faintly. Could it be that you're still angry about what happened yesterday? Ao Yunzhuang, the East Mystery Peak Master, and Ning Qiushui, the South Seoul Peak Master, also looked over in surprise. Yuan Shang's gaze was deep and his expression was slightly solemn. There was indeed not much surprise on his face. A disciple of the Beichen Peak Academy had fought her way into the top 8. As the Peak Master, he shouldn't have such a solemn expression. It would be understandable if he was still angry about Wu Yan's elimination yesterday. Humph, what does it have to do with you whether I'm happy or not? Yuan Shang replied coldly and simply ignored the other party. Sidhu Song smiled lightly and didn't appear angry, but his eyes were surging with a trace of coldness. He thought to himself, even Wu Yen is crippled. What else does the Beichen Peak Academy have to compete with me? Top 8 Sister Xuanxuang is so awesome. The moment Long Xuanxuang returned to the bottom of the stage, everyone surrounded her. Especially Zhao Qingkai, his eyes were filled with envy. That's amazing! That Luo Bin couldn't even put up a fight. Long Xuanxuang only responded to everyone's praise with a polite smile. She knew very well that if it wasn't for Chu Hen, she would only be one of the thousands of spectators. When she wasn't liked by others, Long Xuanxuang knew how lonely it felt. Now that she was valued, she wouldn't get carried away. This was the concept that she had comprehended herself. Next, the fifth battle. The battle for the top 8 of the sect battle continued in an orderly manner. The names that appeared on the large golden light screen above Xingqing Peak rose to the top one after another, and some shattered and dissipated. One after another, exciting battles took place on the stage. The cheers from the various peak academies continued to rise. Wang Li's thousand illusion sacred body was still unpredictable. Qi Qianying's fighting style was still unpredictable. And Pei Ye's methods were still extremely ruthless and frightening. As time passed and the battles ended one after another, Yi Yao's expression became more and more strange. Her delicate brows were slightly furrowed, and her eyes were filled with unease. The more time passed, the more unease she felt. Finally, the last battle of the top 8 arrived as scheduled. Not only Yi Yao, but even Chu Hen, Long Xuanxuang, Zhao Qingyi, and the others were shocked then. Everyone in the audience was even more surprised. On the large light screen, the 2 names for the last battle were Chapter 12-27. The last battle of the quarterfinals, Yi Yao of Beichen Peak Academy versus Chu Hen of Beichen Peak Academy. Looking at the last 2 names on the screen floating above Xingqing Peak, the entire audience was in an uproar. Everyone's faces were filled with deep astonishment. Even Elder Lu, the host of the competition, was surprised. One had to know that the opponents of the 16 genius disciples in the quarterfinals were all randomly switched. Although there had been competitors from the same peak academy in the past, this was the first time something like this had happened to Beichen Peak Academy, because there were very few disciples from Beichen Peak Academy who could enter the top 16. It really wasn't very likely to encounter 2 people standing on the stage at the same time. Moreover, both Chu Hen and Yi Yao were new disciples, which made it even more dramatic. 2 Beichen Peak Academies fighting for the last spot in the quarterfinals. I've never seen something like this before. But from the looks of it, this year Beichen Peak Academy has occupied 2 spots in the quarterfinals. This result is better than last time. That's right. If these 2 were to encounter opponents from other peak academies, whether they could advance or not is still a question. In this way, while the other is eliminated, it can also ensure that the other enters the quarterfinals. Hua! The cold wind in the sky was a little strong. On the huge numinous sky arena, the 2 people who most didn't want to meet stood facing each other, one on the east and one on the west. What a coincidence to be able to meet like this! Zhao Qingyi shook her head, feeling both helpless and amused at the same time. The others around her had similar feelings. They didn't know whether to laugh or cry at this situation. My God, isn't this going to kill someone? Wu Mian, who had just rushed back from Sky Observation Peak, saw this scene and sighed. If I knew this would happen, I wouldn't have called junior brother Chu Hen over. Most of the people below the arena had the attitude of watching a show. After a moment of hesitation, Beichen Peak Academy's side all shouted loudly. Junior Sister Yi Yao, do your best, we support you! The last spot in the quarterfinals should still be given to Junior Sister Yi Yao. However, the vast majority of people chose to favor Yi Yao. The reason was very simple. In yesterday's round of 16, Yi Yao's performance against Kai Feng could be said to be perfect. The power of the Tai Chi Holy Physique's bloodline boundary shocked everyone. Combined with the 6 magnificent star jades, it was even more stunning in comparison. The opponent Chu Hen had defeated, Shen Hong, had not even entered the Heaven Martial list. Based on this alone, Yi Yao looked forward to it more than Chu Hen. During the battle for the top 32, the 24th Division where Chu Hen was located, Ning Yu and Lu Liao, 2 geniuses on the leaderboard, were eliminated. However, no one had come out to confirm whether it was Chu Hen who had eliminated them. Even if it was Chu Hen, Lu Liao was only ranked 9th on the Heavenly Martial list, while Kaifeng, who was known as the indestructible Golden Bell, was ranked 8th. Therefore, based on their analysis, everyone from Beichen Peak Academy still hoped that Yi Yao could take the last spot. After all, Yi Yao was the direct disciple of Peak Lord Yuan Shang. Therefore, she should receive the highest praise. Looking at the beautiful and agile figure on the stage, Peak leader Yuan Shang in the Xingqing Peak viewing gallery also revealed an expression of anticipation. Although Wu Yan had lost, Yi Yao's performance still gave him some comfort. However, just as Elder Lu was about to announce the start of the competition, something unexpected happened again. Yi Yao slowly raised her right hand above her head and said, "I forfeit, I forfeit." "What? Wow!" Hearing this, the crowd was in an uproar again. Chu Hen raised his brows and a helpless smile appeared on his lips. He seemed to have expected that Yi Yao would do this. However, Yi Yao's action was not understood by the people from Beichen Peak Academy. Peak Lord Yuan Shang frowned and his expression turned cold. "What's going on? Junior sister Yi Yao, if you forfeit, what about Beichen Peak Academy? No matter how good their relationship is, you can't do this, right? You're the direct disciple of Peak Lord. Don't be impulsive at this time." Many disciples from Beichen Peak Academy tried to dissuade her. Yi Yao bit her lips and raised her head. Her bright eyes were filled with determination as she looked at Chu Hen and said seriously, "I can't beat Big Brother Chu Hen, so I forfeit." This was the reason Yi Yao gave to the crowd. But even if she could beat Chu Hen, the result would be the same. Towards Chu Hen, she would never be able to oppose him. But there were still many people who doubted this answer. "Can't beat him? You can even beat Kaifeng easily. How can you not beat Chu Hen? You're going crazy. How can you face senior brother Wu Yan?" But no matter how the crowd tried to persuade her, Yi Yao's eyes never shifted. Elder Lu nodded slightly and said in a low voice, "Beichen Peak Academy Yi Yao, I'll give you another chance. Are you really going to forfeit?" Yi Yao was just about to answer when Yuan Shang suddenly stood up from the Star Peak spectators' stand and looked down with a dignified gaze. Little Yao or everyone present was startled. Obviously, Yuan Shang wanted Yi Yao to change her mind. Yi Yao glanced at Yuan Shang and paused for a moment before turning to Elder Lu. Her tone was still determined. "I forfeit." In an instant the crowd booed. When this decision was made, it meant that the popularity that Yi Yao had accumulated in yesterday's battle instantly collapsed. Almost all the disciples from Beichen Peak Academy looked at her with disappointment. Yuan Shang's expression was completely cold. With a wave of his sleeve, he turned and left the spectators' stand. The senior elders of the martial arts faction looked at each other. Dongxian Peak Master Ao Yunzhuang and Nanling Peak Master Ning Qiushui looked at each other and saw the surprise on each other's faces. After all, Yuan Shang could maintain his composure even when Wu Yan was defeated so badly yesterday. They did not expect him to leave today because of Yi Yao's forfeit. It was really puzzling. On the other hand, Situ Song, the West Dome Peak Master, revealed a mocking smile. "Haha, interesting." Yi Yao's forfeit also meant that Chu Hen had won without a fight and successfully advanced to the top 8. Bang! On the light screen above Star Peak Peak, Yi Yao's name was like a burst bubble, shattering. After a series of battles, there were finally 8 names left on the light screen. Cough cough. Elder Lu pretended to cough twice. This unexpected situation inevitably made the current atmosphere a little awkward, especially when Peak Master Yuan Shang left in public. It caused everyone to whisper and debate. In order to break the current stalemate, Elder Lu quickly thought of a good plan to save the situation. Suddenly, he had an idea and said loudly, "It seems that everyone is not satisfied with today's outcome. Then, why don't we take a look at tomorrow's match schedule?" Tomorrow's match schedule. Everyone could not help but have a flash of light in front of their eyes. However, seeing the reaction of the disciples, Elder Lu's face revealed a profound and sly smile. He then waved his hand and shot a ray of light towards the golden light screen in the sky. Buzz! In an instant, the light screen glowed with a dazzling light. Accompanied by a strong energy fluctuation, the order of the 8 names on it was immediately disrupted. Everyone raised their heads to look, their expressions solemn. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. The 8 names were like a revolving lantern, switching back and forth. Whoosh! A solidified golden light pattern spread out, and the match schedule formed by the 8 names immediately appeared in front of everyone's eyes. Wang Li, Pei Yi, Qi Qianying, and the geniuses of the Shao Alliance's eyes turned cold as a cold light flashed in their eyes. The first battle, Chu Hen against the Shao Alliance. The second battle, Qi Qianying against Long Xuanshuang. The third battle, Wang Li against Lu Feng. The fourth battle, Pei Yi against Wen Tao. Everyone's eyes were fixed on the first battle. In particular, the Shao Alliance's eyes were surging with deep coldness. Chapter 12:28. The battle for the top 8 of the sect battle came to an end amidst the discussions. At the same time, the lineup of the top 4 battle that was about to take place the next day had caused everyone inside and outside of the martial sect to speculate. If nothing goes wrong, senior brother Wang Li and senior brother Pei Yi will meet again in the finals. Not necessarily, senior sister Qi Qianying might also break this trend. There's no suspense in the next 3 battles. I'm looking forward to the first battle. I don't think there will be any suspense in the first battle. Senior brother Shao will definitely win. It's hard to say. Don't you remember last year? Not long after Chu Hen entered the sect, he publicly provoked Shao Alliance at the Heaven Martial Peak. At that time, Shao Alliance didn't seem to be able to do anything to Chu Hen. Did you remember wrongly? At that time, he was stopped by Dean Luo Tsang and the sect protecting elder. Otherwise, Chu Hen would have lost half his life. Furthermore, things are different now. At that time, senior brother Shao was ranked 11th on the Heaven Martial leaderboard. From today onwards, he has already risen to 7th place. It's more than enough to deal with a mere Chu Hen. After the battle between Shao Alliance and Qin Yan in the day, the former's popularity increased exponentially. Young Master Qinqing, Shao Alliance, who possessed the bloodline limit of the heaven-capturing holy body and the power of the 4 ice attribute spirits, was placed high hopes by everyone. On the other hand, Chu Hen, who won without a fight, was the subject of much controversy. I really can't understand why junior sister Yi Yao would actually forfeit. There's nothing I can't understand. She just doesn't want to fight with that Chu Hen. Saying that she can't beat him is actually just an excuse. But then again, peak leader Yuan Shang is really angry this time. It would be weird if she wasn't angry. Weyan lost so badly. She originally wanted to rely on another direct disciple to regain some ground, but in the end, she directly surrendered. Don't you think she's angry? This is only one of the reasons. There's another very important reason, and that is that Long Xuanshuang has advanced. Even though martial sect disciples mainly cultivated, there was no lack of busybodies. Although some things were not mentioned openly, they still fell into the ears of others like the wind passing through a wall. Long Xuanshuang's advancement had made Peak Master Yuan Shang unhappy? What's going on? It's not that I'm unhappy, it's just that it's unfair. Beichen Peak Academy has never taken Long Xuanshuang seriously. Now that she's advanced, isn't that a slap in the face to all the higher-ups of Beichen Peak Academy? Of course, Peak Lord Yuan Shang also wants Long Xuanshuang to advance. After all, she's also a member of Beichen Peak Academy. But the problem lies with Yi Yao. Previously, the best resources were used on her. Logically speaking, she shouldn't fall behind Long Xuanxuang. But now that she's forfeited, Yuan Shang's hopes have all been dashed. Naturally, he's angry. That makes sense. However, this Yi Yao is really interesting. When Chu Hen is defeated by the Shao Alliance tomorrow, he will regret it. At least she has some hope of beating Shao Alliance. Haha, wait and see. In the evening, outside Purple Bamboo Forest, a slightly disappointed and delicate figure slowly walked out of the bamboo forest. Chu Hen, Long Xuanxuang, and Wu Mian immediately went up to her. How is it? Peak Lord still doesn't want to see you? Chu Hen asked. Yi Yao shook her head, a trace of helplessness flashing in her eyes. Ever since she entered martial sect, Yi Yao had never disobeyed Yuan Shang's orders. In terms of cultivation, it was all planned by Yuan Shang, and Yi Yao's cleverness and innocence was deeply loved by Yuan Shang. Now that she had embarrassed Yuan Shang in front of tens of thousands of people from all the sects, one could imagine how angry he would be. I say, junior sister Yi Yao, you're really something. Why are you abdicating your authority for no good reason? In the entire Beichen Peak Academy, other than Wu Yan, you're the only one who has learned Beichen mantra. You can try to become the champion. Wu Mian touched his sore spot and began to nag without restraint. Yi Yao glanced at him but did not say anything. Chu Hen patted her head. Don't worry. Peak Lord Yuan Shang's anger will subside in 2 days. Yi Yao nodded. Wu Mian curled his lips in disdain. As he walked, he muttered in a low voice, What are you talking about? Unless you can make it to the top 3, Peak Lord won't be able to subside. Ignoring Wu Mian's nonsense, Chu Hen sent the 2 girls back to their lodgings. After comforting Yi Yao, Chu Hen told Long Xuanxuang, Your opponent tomorrow is Dongxian Peak's Qi Qianying. Try to relax. I'll do my best, replied Long Xuanxuang. And Chu Hen, Gidge, you can do it too. Be careful of the Shao Alliance's limitless power, reminded Yi Yao. Chu Hen smiled. I will go in. I'll head back first. Shortly after, Chu Hen returned to the sky observation peak alone. The weather tonight was much cooler than the night before. Dark clouds covered the sky like a thick curtain covering the stars. A crescent moon was faintly discernible behind the clouds, dark and mysterious. In the spacious cave abode, a single candle illuminated the interior. Chu Hen directly walked to the stone seat at the center of the Dao platform. With a wave of his hand, a gentle light flashed by, and the ordinary wall in front of him seemed to be unveiled by a layer of veil. Numerous complicated runes and numbers appeared in front of Chu Hen's eyes. As of now, Chu Hen had already memorized the contents of the Northern Star Mantra. He also had a deeper understanding of this supreme martial art. His gaze turned and finally landed on the mysterious runes at the bottom left corner. He couldn't help but fall into deep thought. Midnight. Chu Hen sat on the stone seat and his breathing was especially light, as if he was one with the surrounding air flow. Inside and outside of Sky Observation Peak, it was completely silent. Even the sounds of birds and insects couldn't be heard. Just at this moment, rumble. An earth-shattering sound suddenly came from the top of Sky Observation Peak. Chu Hen, who was in a state of meditation, suddenly opened his eyes. 2 rays of cold light shot out from his eyes, the earth trembled and the mountain range swayed. In the next instant, the cave dwelling on the Sky Observation Peak violently shook. The rock wall above Chu Hen's head was directly smashed apart. Following the fall of large pieces of rock, a gigantic black-colored ball of chains came crashing down like a meteorite, violently smashing towards Chu Hen's location. Chu Hen's figure moved and immediately disappeared on the spot. He quickly flashed out of the cave abode. A fierce and deep bleak cold wind filled the sky and enveloped the entire Sky Observation Peak. The moon was dark and the wind was strong. Frost and dust filled the sky. Numerous huge iron chains crisscrossed and crossed the sky. It was like a huge sky lock formation that sealed the entire sky observation peak. Every iron chain was like a rope that stretched infinitely across the river. They were as thick as a water tank and were covered with mysterious runes and secret inscriptions, emitting a majestic aura, a huge iron ball with a diameter of more than 100 meters that was intertwined with iron chains smashed deep into sky observation peak. More than half of the peak collapsed, and a large area of the stone wall caved in. Looking at the situation before him, Chu Hen's side profile revealed a trace of coldness. He stood in the air and stood in the center of the skylock formation. "You're in such a hurry to court death?" Buzz. Subsequently, a dark gray light appeared in the air before him. In the gray light, a fierce figure with a vigorous aura quietly appeared. He stared coldly at Chu Hen in front of him. Chapter 12:29. Why are you in such a hurry to die? A chaotic cyclone filled the sky. The moon was dark and the wind was strong. Frost and dust filled the sky, and the iron chains locked the sky. Chu Hen's cold eyes were like the water in an ancient well, without the slightest ripple. "Humph, I'm here to kill you!" The twisting power emitted a powerful aura. Following that, a swift and fierce figure appeared in the void in front of Chu Hen. The person was none other than young Master Qing Qing, Xiaomeng. He was also Chu Hen's opponent in the Battle of the Top 4 tomorrow. "How uneasy are you feeling to come here in such a hurry?" Chu Hen looked at Xiaomeng indifferently. There was a hint of mockery in his eyes. Xiaomeng frowned as a cold gleam flashed in his eyes. "Humph, aren't you overestimating yourself? I'm here to take away the Black Kshetra divine lightning." The final battle of the sect war was imminent. Naturally, Xiaomeng wanted to do everything he could to increase his strength. The Black Kshetra divine lightning that Chu Hen possessed was a divine item that he had always desired. If he obtained it, Xiaomeng believed, he could try to compete with Pei Yi, Wang Li, Qi Qianying, and the others with the Four Souls and the heaven-capturing Saint Physique. Tomorrow. He could not wait any longer. Chu Hen looked at Xiaomeng's fierce face playfully. "Are you sure you have the ability? How arrogant! You've already fallen into my heaven-capturing formation. Even if you're powerful, you won't be able to escape. If you know what's good for you, hand over the Black Kshetra divine lightning, and I might spare your life," Xiaomeng shouted fiercely. Chu Hen nodded his head. His handsome eyebrows lightly raised as he said, "Yes, that's exactly what I wanted. To be honest, it wouldn't be too good for me to forcefully take away your 4 souls in front of so many people tomorrow. I didn't expect that you would personally deliver yourself to me. Humph, you're courting death." A cold killing intent flashed in Xiaomeng's eyes. After he finished speaking, a desolate cold wind blew in all directions. A monstrous and majestic force erupted from Xiaomeng's body. His palm stretched out towards the sky observation peak below. Buzz! A powerful energy fluctuation swept out, and the huge black iron chain ball that was deeply embedded in the mountain peak flew out. Like a flying meteorite, the huge iron chain ball was surrounded by a thick layer of gray light as it smashed towards Chu Hen. The vast and mighty aura was like a mountain, and the ferocious gales came crashing down. A black shadow quickly shrouded Chu Hen's entire body from the sky behind him, its cold aura showing its destructive power. "Disappear!" Xiaomeng shouted. However, in the face of such a ferocious attack, Chu Hen did not even turn his head. He allowed the mountain-like pressure to quickly approach him. At this moment, the corner of Chu Hen's eyes shifted as a sharp sword cry rang out. A dark green holy sword immediately fell into Chu Hen's hand. Chi-chi! Rays of manic and beautiful dark blue lightning quickly scurried onto the sword. It was dazzling and powerful. Chu Hen flipped his hand and swung his sword. Buzz! The space trembled as a lightning sword light that spanned hundreds of meters tore through the sky and slashed at the iron chain ball like a divine punishment. Boom! Bang! In an instant, lightning splashed in all directions and sparks burst forth. The peerless sword light split the huge black iron chain ball into two with the power to cut through bamboo. The broken iron chain was like an exploding ball of string. Chaotic air waves mixed with the exploding chains filled the sky. Chu Hen held the sword diagonally as lightning flickered around his body. His deep eyes were filled with a light feeling. In front of him, Xiaomeng's expression changed slightly. He clenched his fists and revealed a sinister expression. It's time to let you experience the true heaven-capturing saint physique. Boom! A powerful bloodline aura that was more powerful than a flood instantly rose from within Xiaomeng's body like a tsunami. He raised both of his arms, and the originally dark clouds that covered the moon stirred up a series of whirlpools. All of the giant chains that crisscrossed around the sky observation peak emitted waves of powerful energy ripples. The runes all over them shone brilliantly. Buzz buzz. Following that, all the large iron chains tightened rapidly. At the point where the giant iron chains intersected, an extremely ferocious and terrifying beast appeared. A murderous aura filled the air. The beast had the body of a goat and the face of a ghost. It had tiger teeth and eagle-like claws. It had a pair of wings on its back and exuded an evil aura. Eagle Tao, Chu Hen raised his eyebrows and a trace of surprise flashed in his eyes. This was one of the 24 blood demon guards that he had seen in the immortal devil tomb, Eagle Tao. Chu Hen knew a little about the power of Xiaomeng's bloodline. The heaven-capturing saint physique would absorb a part of the power of the creatures and beasts that died in his hands. From there, it would be strengthened and controlled. It seems that a mere Eagle Tao can't do anything to me. Chu Hen didn't hide the provocation in his tone. Heh! Xiaomeng sneered. What about now? Roar. Woo! As soon as he finished speaking, waves of chilling, murderous aura burst out one after another. After the ferocious eagle Taotai, many ferocious giant beasts appeared in the sky above the entire sky-capturing formation. The aura of each beast was no weaker than that of the eagle Tao blood demon. There was a snake eagle with 3 or 4 heads, a dark violent bear with thorny steel armor, and a headless undead warrior with a giant sword in its hand. In an instant, Chu Hen felt like he was surrounded by a group of demons from hell. Chu Hen leaned to one side and glanced around. That's interesting. Xiaomeng was enraged when he saw his opponent's nonchalant attitude. Pretending to be calm, kill! Roar. Woo! An earth-shattering gale roared and stirred up endless murderous aura. One after another, huge dark beasts emitting a murderous aura immediately launched destructive attacks towards Chu Hen, who was within the Skylock formation. A pressure that could topple the mountains and overturn the seas surged forth. Chu Hen slightly nodded his head. Fierce lightning flashed within his pupils, and after that, an extremely boundless and frightening sword force gushed out from his body. One sword celestial, myriad sword tribulation. The airflow between heaven and earth stirred in all directions. Chu Hen's body spun rapidly in the void. In an instant, countless condensed sword rays burst out of his body. The sky was filled with sword shadows like thousands of arrows shot at the same time. They swept through the air with a dense murderous aura. Each of the sword rays was surrounded by powerful lightning arcs. The dim sky and the earth were instantly illuminated in a dazzling way. Hiss, hiss, hiss. The piercingly cold sword chi that crisscrossed and interweaved ceaselessly struck the bodies of the formidable ferocious beings in the surroundings, and numerous merciless sword lights pierced through their bodies like a hot knife through butter, mincing apart their imposing auras. Immediately after, Chu Hen's figure stabilized, and the power of the profound killer divine lightning all gathered on the blue Ran sword. Brandishing his wrist and brandishing the sword, a 360-degree circular sword beam spread out like a nebula shockwave, sweeping in all directions. The ring-shaped lightning sword ray bloomed like a blooming blue vortex, crushing everything in its path. Boom, boom, boom. Chapter 1230. Rumble, the sword's coldness dyed the heavens and the earth. The ring-shaped sword aura with the powerful power of thunder and lightning spread rapidly like a nebula, destroying everything in its path. In an instant, the Tautai blood demon and the other ferocious beasts were all torn into pieces by the destructive impact of Chu Hen's sword. The sky was filled with illusions. The dark night was illuminated. Chu Hen's aura was as breathtaking and extraordinary as a divine rainbow. The terrifying sword momentum that was flying recklessly caused the peaks and mountains below to be flattened one after another. Bang, bang, bang. Then, the Skylock Great Formation that enveloped the Sky Observation Peak also collapsed. The large iron chains that stretched across the sky were broken one by one, like cracked stone pillars, scattering and exploding in the air. The air waves were turbulent, and the sword rain was like a flying rain. Chu Hen stood in the air, holding his sword, and flew towards Xiao Meng in front of him, leaving a bright electric arc in the air. The sharp aura pierced straight into Xiao Meng's mind. Xiao Meng's face was as gloomy as steel. It had never crossed his mind that Chu Hen would be able to break his sky-capturing formation so easily. Looking at the young figure with a threatening sword aura, Xiao Meng clenched his teeth. Then, he put his palms together and an extremely chilling energy suddenly surged out of his body. Don't think too highly of yourself. Limitless forest, extreme cold storm. Extreme cold storm. A powerful voice reverberated between the peaks. Then, an unparalleled cold energy exploded, and the temperature within 100 miles rapidly dropped to the freezing point. Snow and ice swirled in the air. The dense white ice aura covered the sky and covered the earth. In an instant, a thick layer of ice quickly formed on the mountains and forests below. The ponds and rivers around the Sky Observation Peak quickly froze, and the waterfalls also stopped in the valley. At a glance, the endless mountains instantly turned into a land of ice and cold winter. Roar! At the same time, the cold aura rapidly gathered in the sky above Xiao Meng and turned into a ferocious ice crystal snow dragon, ice demon. Like the eagle gluttonous blood demon, he was also one of the 24 demon blood guards. As he stared at the ice crystal snow dragon that was emitting an endless amount of tyrannical aura, a frivolous smile surfaced on Chu Hen's face. He had to admit that the Xiao Alliance had indeed hidden quite a number of trump cards. It was no wonder that he was able to replace Qin Yan's position and ascend to the 7th rank of the Heaven Marshal ranking. However, there was not the slightest hint of fear on Chu Hen's face. In fact, there was not even a hint of seriousness on his face. Roar! At the same time, the ice crystal flood dragon had already risen to the sky in front of Chu Hen. Then, it opened its huge mouth, which was emitting a cold current, and a rapidly spinning white flame condensed in its mouth. That ball of white flame emitted a cold aura that could freeze and crack space. Cold air suddenly rose in all directions. Who? Following that, the ice crystal snow dragon raised its head, and the dragon breath in its mouth transformed into a huge ball of white ice flame with a diameter of over 100 feet, which blasted towards Chu Hen. Endless destructive power surged forth like a flood. The bone-chilling cold seemed to be able to freeze the blood in one's body. Bang! The incomparably majestic and terrifying ice flame directly hit Chu Hen's body, and the terrifying cyclone rapidly froze into ice. Xiao Meng's face revealed a sinister, complacent smile. Arrogant thing, how dare you take on the power of Limitless? During the chaotic battle in the Immortal and Devil Tomb, the power of this extreme cold storm had instantly frozen dozens of Han Yun's sect and profound Yang Palace experts into powder. Once this cold air entered one's body, it directly froze one's blood and meridians. Not to mention Chu Hen, even Qi Qianying, Wang Li and the others probably did not dare to let their guard down. In Xiao Meng's opinion, Chu Hen was simply courting death. However, before Xiao Meng could finish rejoicing, a heavy explosion resounded in the void. Ferocious and vigorous cold wind poured down as an extremely powerful sword aura directly pierced through the enormous cluster of white ice flames. following which, a young figure flew out from within. What? The appearance of this scene caused the Shao alliance to turn pale with fright. After being hit by the power of Limitless from the ice crystal snow dragon, the other party's aura did not weaken in the slightest, and in fact, he was completely unharmed. How was this possible? Heh! Chu Hen indifferently sneered, showing off the power of Limitless in front of me? I also admire your courage. Xiao Meng was shocked once again, and the power of the 4 souls in his body was released to the fullest. Roar! The soaring ice crystal snow dragon opened its mouth again, and then violently spewed out a white ice beam, like an aurora piercing through the sky, and blasted towards Chu Hen. Swoosh! Chu Hen leaped up, dragging an afterimage in the air, and together with the majestic sword energy, a dozen human-shaped sword energy appeared in the sky in a row. Flying immortal sword! Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh! The dozen human-shaped sword energy were as swift as the wind, as fast as lightning, and continuously switched between the huge body of the ice crystal snow dragon. Dense and solid sword energy interweaved in the air, and together with the vast momentum of the air being cut apart, the ice crystal snow dragon's body suddenly shot out a dozen shocking sword energy. Then, with a loud bang sound, the 1,000-meter-long snow dragon directly split into pieces, and exploded in the void. The peerless sword technique lit up the heaven and earth. Xiao Meng's expression changed again, and his heart was filled with shock. At this moment, he had already used up all his strength, but it seemed that Chu Hen did not use his full strength. Panic! It covered his entire face. Fear! It quietly spread in his heart. Wang! In the next moment, a vigorous momentum whistled, and a huge green sword energy pierced through the sky. Xiao Meng's expression changed, and his pupils shrank to the extreme. Bang! The surging sword energy spread in all directions. Xiao Meng's body shook violently, and the majestic giant sword energy hit in front of him. His chest immediately caved in, and the biting cold sword energy tore his body apart, leaving sword wounds all over his body. Fresh blood flew, and the sky was beautiful. The merciless sword energy, along with Xiao Meng's body, directly fell on a mountain below. Boom! Rocks collapsed, and the earth was torn apart. The majestic mountain was directly smashed to the ground. In the huge pit, the rubble was filled with a violent storm that shook the heavens and the earth. Among the rubble, Xiao Meng's body was covered in blood, and there were sword wounds all over his body. He laid on the ground, and his eyes were filled with unprecedented shock and fear. Xiao! A slight cyclone spread out from his side, and a young figure with restrained aura steadily landed beside him. Xiao Meng's body shrank, and he tried to struggle on the ground, but to no avail. Give it to me. What I want. A frivolous voice came from Chu Hen's mouth. Xiao Meng's heart trembled, and he raised his head to look at the expressionless face. At this moment, he finally knew how big the gap between him and Chu Hen was. Back in the immortal and devil tomb, Chu Hen almost died in the hands of the 10-feathered monster Blade Li Yanqing. In the blink of an eye, less than 2 years had passed. The other party had already stepped on him. A deep sense of helplessness spread in Xiao Meng's heart. He gritted his teeth, and then he raised his trembling palm, and a bright white light appeared from his palm. Then, a white crystal slowly appeared. The crystal was angular, and there were wisps of white cyclones surging within it. Light and shadow intertwined, overlapping, and emitted a strange, dreamy feeling. Chu Hen's eyes lit up. He moved his palm, and a suction force surged out, and then the crystal was kept in his hand. For soul spirits, I have given you, let me go once, Xiao Meng said weakly. It seems that you are not qualified to negotiate with me, Chu Hen replied indifferently. Xiao Meng's fingers sank into the pile of stones, and his voice was low and sinister. What else do you want? If you kill me, the West Dome Peak, the Peak Courtyard will not let this matter go, hee. Meddlesome, Chu Hen smiled indifferently, and then his eyes turned cold. He lifted his leg and kicked the other party's chest. Bang! With a muffled sound, Xiao Meng was directly sent flying, and he heavily smashed into a slope in front of him. The soil cracked and the gravel exploded. Following that, a few panicked figures stumbled out like frightened mice. These people were Shun Hong and the other West Dome Peak Courtyard disciples led by Xiao Meng. From beginning to end, they had been hiding in the dark to watch the battle. At this moment, their eyes were filled with fear as they looked at Chu Hen and Xiao Meng, who had fallen in front of them. Xiao Meng's already sunken chest suffered another heavy blow. His sternum was broken, and blood constantly flowed from his mouth. His aura was extremely weak, and he was half dead. It seemed that he could only breathe out, but not in. Shun Hong and the others were so scared that their faces turned pale. Chu, junior brother Chu Hen, no, senior brother Chu Hen, this matter has nothing to do with us. It was Xiao Meng who wanted to come. Chu Hen didn't even look at these people who were scared out of their wits. Get lost. Don't appear in front of me in the future. Chapter 12:31. It was a cold and bleak night, and silence reigned. The mountains around the sky observation peak were covered in a thick layer of ice, as if they were frozen in winter for thousands of miles. Amidst the rubble, Chu Hen's eyes shone like stars as he looked at the crystal floating in his palm. Inside the sparkling and translucent crystal, a white cyclone flowed. It was like an enchanting snowy dancer, unpredictable and very magical. It's actually the four souls refined by the demon race's Yama King. A slightly surprised voice came from Chu Hen's purple palace. Yes. Chu Hen nodded in affirmation. When did this happen? About 2 years ago, when I was looking for Meng Shang in the Immortal and Devil Tomb. After the battle at the Thunder Saint Palace, Missouri Qingli had been in a state of hibernation. In other words, she had not experienced anything that had happened to Chu Hen in the 2 years since they left the victorious East State to the Northern Ice region. This blank memory wasn't clear either. Although the events in the Immortal and Devil Tomb were not long, it was still a very important experience. There, Chu Hen had witnessed the terrifying might of the 24 demon blood guards under the Yama King's throne, as well as the fierce battle between the human experts and the demon army. He had even seen the peerless elegance of the Fox of Green Hill with his own eyes. There was also a beautiful figure that had inadvertently left a mark in his mind. Shallow and deep, eternal joy unending. Then, this was the first day. It had to be said that when she took off her mask, she did indeed amaze the world. Today is the last day, we will not meet again. As she said this, she put on her mask, concealing her stunning beauty. What are you thinking about? Mo Qingli's voice pulled Chu Hen back from his thoughts. Chu Hen smiled. It's nothing, just a friend I met in the Immortal and Devil Tomb. She and I accidentally entered the Yama King's Devil Tomb, and I obtained a part of Yama King's power there. Where is she? I don't know. I haven't seen her since we left the Tomb of Immortals and Demons. Chu Hen paused and asked in confusion, why did you only ask about her and not care about the power of Sun Luo that I obtained? Because I'm very curious, what happened between you and her? You seem to be feeling guilty and a little regretful just now. Guilt? Chu Hen was taken aback. Really? Of course. Chu Hen smiled dryly and didn't say anything else. Then, with a thought, the 4 soul spirits floating in his palm immediately merged into his palm. Buzz, as soon as the 4 souls entered his body, Chu Hen's body glowed with a frighteningly cold aura. White cyclones lingered around his body like illusory dragons. Chu Hen raised his eyebrows, and there seemed to be icy whirlpools surging in his eyes. Then, he clenched his hand into a fist, and an invisible and majestic aura gushed out from his body. Bang! Instantly, all the layers of ice that covered an area of 50 kilometers around Heaven Observation Peak suddenly shattered apart like countless exploding glaciers, transforming into ice crystal shards that covered the sky, covering the heavens and the earth, and suffusing the entire area. The cold that enveloped the area quickly dissipated. The temperature gradually returned to normal. The frozen ponds, rivers, and waterfalls also returned to their original flowing state. Apart from the mountains that had been flattened due to the battle, everything else returned to how it was before. The power of Sun Luo is really domineering. As far as I know, there should be 3 more 4 soul spirits, right? Mo Qingli said. Chu Hen nodded. The other 3 were in the hands of the sky sword finger Li Yuanliang, the deadly elegance Lu Weiyue, and the 10-feathered demon blade Li Yanqing. The corners of Chu Hen's eyes narrowed as he gazed into the endless horizon. A faint white light appeared on the horizon. The sun is about to rise. At the same time, it also meant that the battle for the top 4 was about to begin. Morning. The dazzling sunlight pierced through the pure white clouds, illuminating both the inside and outside of Xingqing Peak. The combat arena had an awe-inspiring, imposing aura, and was majestic and imposing, like a divine altar that soared into the sky. The spectating platforms in the surroundings were like vast and enormous ships that floated in midair, and they were similarly extremely magnificent and revealed the might of a mountain that could move the world. Even though the sect battles had not begun, the spectator stands were already filled with people. The crowd was even more intense than the top 8 and top 16 battles 2 days ago. Even the most sect's disciples, who disliked crowds, could not help but come to watch. Even some disciples who were in seclusion stopped their cultivation and came. There are so many people. Chu Hen, Yiyao, Zhao Qingyi, and the others had also arrived at their usual seats on the south side of the spectator stands. Even more attention than yesterday, Zhao Qingkai said. Of course, there are no weaklings in the top 8. No one wants to miss out on the upcoming battles, Wu Mian said with anticipation. The first battle will be Chu Hen. What about you? Zhao Qingkai looked at Chu Hen and asked. The crowd also looked at him expectantly. Chu Hen smiled, a profound look flashing in his eyes. Junior Sister Long, your opponent is Qi Qianying. Don't let your guard down. Zhao Qingyi said solemnly. Qi Qianying's opponents these days are too weak. It's difficult to observe her fighting style, otherwise we could use it as a reference. Yeah. I feel pressured, Zhao Qingkai agreed with a hint of helplessness. Qi Qianying's fighting style is based on flexibility. At this moment, a familiar and gentle voice came from the crowd. Everyone's heart lit up. Senior brother Wu Yan? Everyone looked over, only to see a figure with both hands on a walking stick and several bandages wrapped around his body walking towards them. Wu Mian hurriedly went up to support him. Chu Hen and the rest also went up to welcome him. Senior brother Wu Yan, why are you here? Didn't I tell you to rest more? Hee. Wu Yan laughed heartily. I've been lying down for almost 2 days. It's really boring. Moreover, I can't miss the battle of the top 4. What about your injury? It's fine. Wu Yan waved his hand. Although his face was very pale, he was in good spirits and his eyes were full of spirit. He looked at Long Xuanxuang and asked, Junior Sister Long's opponent is Qi Qianying? Long Xuanxuang nodded. Wu Yan nodded slightly and pondered for a moment before she said, Qi Qianying's forte is the instant kill tactic. She can change her position extremely quickly on the battlefield. Her opponents usually don't even have time to react before she kills them in a blink of an eye. Instant kill technique? The few of them frowned slightly. In terms of strength, Qi Qianying might not be as strong as Pei Yi and Wang Li, but speed is definitely her forte. Coupled with her elusive movements, it's very troublesome. Therefore, when facing Qi Qianying, we must limit her speed and try our best not to let her get close to us. Once she gets close to us, we'll basically lose. Then what's the limit of her bloodline? Chu Hen asked. I don't know. Wu Yan shook her head. Everyone was stunned. The other party actually did not know the limit of Qi Qianying's bloodline? I think even Wang Li and Pei Yi don't know the limit of Qi Qianying's bloodline. After all, she never interacts with others in the sect. After listening to Wu Yan's explanation, the few of them could not help but frown slightly. It seemed like Qi Qianying was much more difficult to deal with than they had imagined. It's all right. Just do your best, Wu Yan comforted. Long Xuanxuang nodded lightly. She did not seem too nervous. At the same time, Pei Yi, Wang Li, Qi Qianying, and the other genius powerhouses had also arrived at Star Pillar Peak. Naturally, the crowd could not help but burst into cheers. Heh, isn't that Wu Yan? He was beaten half to death by senior brother Pei Yi, yet he actually dares to come here and make a fool of himself. Beichen Peak Academy. After being at the bottom for so many years, he naturally has to be more thick-skinned. Ha 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 ha, you're right. The surroundings couldn't help but emit a few ear-piercing sounds of ridicule. Wu Yan turned a deaf ear to this and paid no attention to it. On the other hand, Zhao Qinkai, Wu Mian, and the others were angered to the point of gnashing their teeth, and they almost went forward to quarrel with them. Whoosh! Suddenly, a shapeless and mighty imposing aura spread out from the spectating platform on Star Pillar Peak. Subsequently, unprecedented and seething cheers suddenly arose in the entire arena area. My God, look quickly! Who's that? Who? Qiu Xingyi, senior brother Qiu Xingyi. When these three words resounded out, the entire scene could be said to be shocked, and even Wang Li, Pei Yi, and Qi Qianying's graceful bearing occupied a great deal of the limelight. Chapter 1232. Qiu Xingyi. The name that had been first on the Heaven Martial Roll for many years. When these three words rang out, the entire Xingqing Peak erupted into an unprecedented uproar. Everyone's gazes were gathered on a young figure with an extraordinary bearing on the star-raising peak viewing platform. Even senior brother Qiu is here, Wu Yan murmured in surprise. Where is he? I haven't seen him before. Zhao Qinkai clapped his hands excitedly. However, there was no need for Wu Yan to point out. When everyone looked over, they had already guessed who Qiu Xingyi was. In the crowd, he was like a moon surrounded by stars. Even though he was not standing close to the front, his innate dignified demeanor caused the surrounding martial ancestor disciples to be reduced to mere foils, making them appear dim and lightless. Chu Hen also curiously sized up the proud Son of Heaven who had gathered thousands of glory on his body. Qiu Xingyi had a tall, slender, and handsome figure. He wore a white robe, and his temperament was gentle, giving off a feeling of gentleness. He was like the second Dongxian Peak Master Aoyun Manor. However, in comparison, Qiu Xingyi's temperament was even more outstanding. Senior brother Qiu, we finally meet. First on the Heaven Martial Roll, you really live up to your name. He's so handsome. Senior brother Qiu should really participate in the sect battle. The atmosphere was getting louder and louder. Other than Wang Li, Pei Yi, and Qi Qianying, there seemed to be no other sect genius who could be mentioned in the same breath as Qiu Xingyi. The four of them were like the bright moon among the thousands of stars, shining brightly. As a result, the first disciples of the 4 Peak Academies were all present. However, as the first disciple of the Beichen Peak Academy, Wu Yan seemed to be especially embarrassed at the moment. No one noticed his presence at all. Even if there was, it was a deliberate mocking gaze. What a pity! It's rare that the top 4 of the Heaven Martial Roll are all here. That's right. If only senior brother Qiu wasn't absent. No matter what, senior brother Qiu has my support. First on the Heaven Martial Roll is enough to prove everything. More and more people broke out into cheers. He's stirring up trouble again. Wang Li shook her head and chuckled. She crossed one arm in front of her and stroked her chin with the other. On the other hand, there was a ball of restless flames slowly rising in Pei Ye's eyes, and a trace of invisible high fighting spirit was revealed between his brows. As for Qi Qianying, she appeared especially calm. It was as if to her, whether Qiu Xingyi stole the limelight or not had nothing to do with her. Qiu Xingyi only smiled politely at the passionate atmosphere. Even though he had stolen the limelight, he still stood below the stage in his own way to show that he was not the main character of the day. TSK, as expected of the top ranker on the Heaven Marshal rankings. Even as a spectator, he's so eye-catching. Zhao Qingkai shook his head and sighed. Of course, senior brother Qiu's popularity is unparalleled. Let's see if the other two have the chance to surpass him. As Wu Yan spoke, she glanced at Wang Li and Pei Yi. In his opinion, only these two had any hope of competing with Qiu Xingyi. As for the others, it was practically impossible. As for Qi Qianying, she was less competitive and did not like to fight for the top spot on the leaderboard. As time passed, the atmosphere in the arena gradually calmed down. The martial sect's upper echelon elders and the 8 Peak Academy masters also sat on the viewing platform on Xingqing Peak. Due to the impact of yesterday's events, it could be seen that Beichen Peak Master Yuan Shang's expression was not good. His face was stern and slightly cold. Yi Yao, who stood beside Chu Hen, sighed a little desolately. Looks like Master's anger has not subsided at all. At this moment, Elder Lu, who had hurriedly ascended the viewing platform on Xingqing Peak, suddenly hurriedly led 2 disciples to carry a spacious stone chair and placed it on the highest level of the platform. The hearts of everyone present were startled. What's going on? That seat is actually higher than the 4 Peak Masters' seats? Could it be? Everyone's heart faintly trembled. In the entire martial sect, there was only one person who could sit above the 4 Peak Masters. Whoosh! It was also at this moment that a formless righteous aura suddenly rose between heaven and earth. Immediately afterward, a divine rainbow descended from the sky, and an unshakable aura immediately enveloped the entire area around the Lingshao fighting platform. The space within 1,000 miles was faintly trembling uneasily, everyone's heartstrings were tight, and their hearts were hanging in their throats. Screech in the 9th heaven, a majestic eagle let out a long cry that resounded through the void. Buzz! The space trembled violently. Wherever the divine rainbow went, a slender figure like a king appeared in front of everyone's eyes. In an instant, all the senior elders got up, and the 8 Peak Academy masters all left their seats. The disciples of the 4 Peak Academies all bowed and lowered their heads. Welcome, Lord Sovereign! Sovereign! Dongfang Hengji, the supreme ruler of martial sect. He was in existence above the 8 masters of the Peak Academies. Although his arrival was unexpected, it was also shocking. No need to be so polite. The gentle voice was particularly deep and contained a supreme majestic aura. Everyone present responded in unison. Thank you, Lord Sovereign. Everyone raised their heads. Even the most arrogant genius did not dare to be arrogant in front of him. Chu Hen swept his gaze across. The leader of the martial organization looked to be around 40 years old. His appearance was about the same age as the leader of the Dongxian Peak, Ao Yunzhuang. However, the dignity between his brows was something that Ao Yunzhuang could not compare to. The other party stood on top of the star peak like a king looking down at his subjects, and he had an invisible and powerful aura that was deep and restrained. Is this the Lord Sovereign? Doesn't he only come for the finals? Zhao Qingkai whispered. I don't know, he only comes for the finals. Wu Mian replied in a low voice. How domineering, no one dares to breathe too loudly. Looking at the martial sect disciples below, the sovereign's gaze was gentle. He raised his hand and said, Everyone, don't stand on ceremony. Just do as before. I am now also one of the audience. With that, he flicked his sleeves and sat down on the stone chair behind him. With that, the atmosphere in the audience relaxed a little. Everyone's gaze was once again focused on Elder Lu at the front of the platform. The latter first exchanged glances with the 4 Peak Masters before nodding in tacit understanding. Today is the battle of the top 4. Elder Lu's voice was loud and clear. With a wave of his hand, a golden light flew out from his sleeve and transformed into a square light screen that was dozens of meters long. Buzz buzz on the light screen, 8 names slowly appeared. 4 battle lists appeared in front of everyone's eyes. According to yesterday's announcement, the first battle of the top 4 is between Beichen Peak Academy's Chu Hen and West Sky Peak Academy's Shao Alliance. The noise swept through the audience. The West Sky Peak Academy was excited. As for the Beichen Peak Academy, they were whispering and there were even a few boos. Humph, he advanced by relying on women. How dare he go on stage? Let's see how he'll be tortured by Shao Alliance's senior brother. Amidst the discussion, Chu Hen steadily appeared on the Lingshao fighting ring. He acted as if he didn't hear the gossip below the stage, and he appeared to be especially calm. He seems to be a new face. Qiu Xingyi, who was on the Xingqing Peak viewing platform, murmured in surprise. Looking at Chu Hen, the Beichen Peak Master Yuan Shang frowned again. On the contrary, the West Sky Peak Master Sidu Song revealed a playful smile. Then, everyone was surprised to find that Shao Alliance had not appeared. Where is Shao Alliance's senior brother? Is he here? I don't know, I haven't seen him. All the disciples looked at each other and looked for Shao Alliance's figure. Elder Lu frowned and said in a deep voice, West Sky Peak Academy's Shao Alliance, get on the stage immediately. However, there was no response. The atmosphere was a little chaotic. Sidu Song's face also turned cold. Where is Shao Alliance? Well, he doesn't seem to be here. Someone responded. Didn't come? Wasn't this causing trouble? The battle of the top 4 was such a big scene and he was absent for no reason? Especially when the sect master was here. Chapter 1233. Let's move on to the second match first. The first match will be the last for now. As soon as Elder Lu's words were spoken, many voices of debate couldn't help but rise below the stage. That's weird. Shao Alliance is actually absent for such an important event. Could it be that he's about to break through and is in seclusion? I don't think so. I didn't hear any news of him going into seclusion. Even if he's about to break through, it's not as important as the sect battle. There were whispers below the stage. On Xingqing Peak, Beichen Peak Master Yuan Shang snorted and said with dissatisfaction, latecomers should be treated as forfeits. Not far away, Sidu Song, the West Dome Peak Master, raised his eyebrows and replied with slight disdain, It's not a big deal, why are you so strict? Haha, how can he not show up for the battle of the top 4? Is this not a big deal? I think Peak Master Yuan Shang is afraid that the one from your Beichen Peak Academy will lose too badly, right? That's right. A person who relies on a woman to advance can only try to grab any opportunity to squeeze his way up. Beichen Peak Academy, haha, it's really getting worse year by year. Yuan Shang's face turned ashen from the other party's words. Sidu Song was simply too much. It was fine if he said such things before, but now that the sect master was present, the other party still didn't give him any face at all. This really angered Yuan Shang. Alright, the two of you should stop talking. Nanling Peak Master Ning Qiushui advised. At the same time, Chu Hen, who had walked around the fighting ring, returned outside. Elder Lu immediately ordered someone to bring Shao Alliance over. Let's move on to the second match of the top 4. Dongxian Peak Academy's Qi Qianying vs. Beichen Peak Academy's Long Xuanshuang. As soon as the announcement was made, the discussions about Chu Hen and Shao Alliance immediately turned into loud cheers. Everyone turned to look at Qi Qianying expectantly. Looks like it's a good thing that Shao Alliance is late. We can watch senior sister Qianying's glory earlier. Haha, that's right. But that new junior sister Long isn't bad either. Both of them are great beauties. I don't even know who to support. Is there a need to think? Of course senior sister Qianying will win. The winner will definitely be senior sister Qianying, there is no doubt about that. Let's see how far junior sister Long can persevere. On the southern viewing platform, Chu Hen, Yi Yao, Zhao Qingyi, and the others all focused their attention on Long Xuanshuang. Come on, sister Xuanshuang, Yi Yao said. Remember my words, try not to let her get close to you, Wu Yan also reminded softly. Chu Hen, on the other hand, did not say much. He merely signaled with his eyes that the other party should try his best. After that, two peerlessly gorgeous and beautiful figures ascended the arena respectively. One of them was delicate and pretty, elegant like jade. One had a cold and elegant temperament, like frost. The two of them ascended the stage at the same time, like a beautiful scenery, could not help but make people's eyes light up, even though Qi Qianying was ranked fourth on the Sky Martial leaderboard, and Long Xuanxuang was only a newcomer for less than 2 years. Be it in terms of temperament or appearance, they were not inferior to Qi Qianying. Interesting. Below the stage, Wang Li raised her eyebrows slightly, and a lazy smile appeared on her lips. Pei Ye's eyes darkened slightly, and he crossed his arms in front of him. To be honest, he was still a little surprised that Yang Ao would lose to a newcomer. Senior Sister Qi, please advise me. Long Xuanxuang's red lips parted slightly, and her tone was as calm as water. Qi Qianying's clear eyes flickered, and she replied indifferently, I can't advise you. Let's see if you have the strength to defeat me. Let's begin. You're a newcomer, I'll let you go first. Even though it was a prideful statement, there was no hint of provocation in her tone. Long Xuanxuang raised her eyes slightly, and then she brought her palms together, and a powerful whirlpool of ice energy swept out from her body. I'll do as you say. Senior Sister Qi, solid ice type. Whoosh, with a roar of ice, a powerful white whirlpool spilled out from Long Xuanxuang's body, and like a dancing white dragon, it pounced towards Qi Qianying. Wherever the whirlpool went, the ground quickly froze. As it moved, the tip of the thick whirlpool immediately became extremely sharp, and from afar, it looked like a magnificent large ice spear. Swoosh! A bone-chilling cold wind blew against Qi Qianying's face, and her dress and hair danced in the wind. A gentle light flashed in her eyes, and an obscure energy wave rapidly spread from her body. Rumble! In the next moment, the stone platform beside her feet cracked open, and a thick stone wall that exuded a simple and unadorned aura suddenly rose. Bang! The huge ice spear slammed heavily into the wall and instantly exploded into several pieces, and dense ice shards filled the sky. Then, the two sides of the stone wall suddenly exploded, and two crescent-shaped ice fangs drilled out from the ground. The ice fangs closed in from the left and right, and attacked Qi Qianying, who was behind the stone wall. What fast reflexes! Everyone's eyes lit up. The moment the two ice fangs closed in, a beam of light shot into the sky like a flowing shadow. Everyone's gaze immediately followed the source of the voice. Qi Qianying stood in the air, staring at Long Xuanxuang, who was in front of her. Then, she raised her hand and moved her fair and slender fingers gently, and a silver needle appeared between her fingers. The silver needle was about 20 centimeters long, and it looked like an unadorned hairpin. Qi Qianying moved her wrist, and the silver needle in her hand turned into a ray of light that shot downwards. It was so fast that it looked like a starry arrow. Long Xuanxuang's pupils shrank slightly. She condensed her palm in the air, and a cold aura of ice spread out from her palm. It followed the momentum and wrapped around the silver needle like a tassel. In an instant, the silver needle was directly wrapped in a thick layer of ice. It was like an ice mirror. Just when everyone thought that the silver needle's attack had been completely weakened, there was a crisp bang, and the ice mirror that wrapped the silver needle suddenly exploded into thousands of pieces. In the next moment, a fair jade-like hand grasped the silver needle in her hand. Everyone in the audience was shocked. Qi Qianying, who was hundreds of meters away, suddenly flashed in front of Long Xuanxuang. Instant kill. Senior Sister Qianying's movement speed is too fast. Swoosh. Qi Qianying held the silver needle in one hand and stabbed it at Long Xuanxuang in front of her. At the same time, she opened her other hand, and a ball of rapidly condensed true origin energy emitted an extremely powerful energy fluctuation, a double attack. Even if she blocked one attack, there was still another. Qi Qianying's counterattack caused everyone to exclaim in surprise. She was really fast. Chapter 1234. Instant kill. It was like a glimpse of a dazzling flash. Qi Qianying appeared in front of Long Xuanxuang the moment the ice mirror shattered. She held the silver needle in one hand and condensed a powerful wave of energy in the other. The audience could almost see Long Xuanxuang being eliminated as they watched Qi Qianying's double attack. "It's about to end." Long Xuanxuang narrowed her eyes, and her pupils reflected the swift and violent attack that whistled through the air. Then, she actually took 2 steps back. It was a seemingly clumsy and ineffective way to retreat. There was no way she could dodge Qi Qianying's attack at such a short distance. But just as Long Xuanxuang retreated, a ball of white ice whirlpool in the air started to condense together quickly. It was like a ball of water that had turned from liquid to solid. A blurry silhouette appeared. In an instant, a frost guard clad in battle armor and wielding a spear suddenly appeared between the two of them. "What's that?" Everyone in the audience was shocked as well. At the same time, the silver needle in Qi Qianying's hand struck the frost guard first. Crack! A spider web of cracks immediately appeared in front of the frost guard. Then, the silver needle pierced through the frost guard's chest with incredible penetrative force. Then, it flew out of Qi Qianying's fingers and attacked Long Xuanxuang again. Long Xuanxuang tilted her body slightly, and the shining silver needle brushed past her right shoulder. "Nice. Nice dodge." The hearts of the Beichen Peak Academy disciples lit up, and they secretly cheered for Long Xuanxuang. But the moment she dodged the silver needle, a powerful wave of energy followed closely behind Long Xuanxuang. "What?" His relaxed heartstrings tensed up again. Boom! A heavy shockwave spread out on the stage, sending rocks flying and ice shards flying in all directions. The place where Long Xuanxuang was standing had shockingly opened up a hole that was tens of meters wide. Qi Qianying stood alone amidst the swirling dust and wind. Her beautiful eyebrows were filled with slight surprise. "He actually dodged it again," she murmured softly. Then, she raised her head and looked up into the sky. The tall and slender figure that was as cold as ice was surrounded by white ice vortexes that looked like illusory dragons. The audience widened their eyes. Long Xuanxuang, who was still on the ground a second ago, had already flashed to the sky. She quickly formed a seal with her 10 fingers. Her eyes were as clear as frost, and her aura was as cold as a knife. Swish, 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 then, a vast and surging wave of chilly energy surged towards Qi Qianying below. The dense ice vortexes condensed into ice pillars that fell diagonally from the sky. Qi Qianying's beautiful eyes narrowed slightly, and she immediately retreated. Bang, 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 sharp ice pillars that looked like large wooden stakes continuously hit the stage, causing rubble to fly up into the air. The sharp ice pillars pierced deep into the ground, the chilly energy spread in all directions, and it was incomparably spectacular. The back and forth between the two of them could be said to be somewhat difficult for the audience to keep up with the rhythm. Initially, he thought Qi Qianying would be able to end the battle in a few moves with her elusive instant kill technique. He did not expect Long Xuanxuang's reflexes to be as good as hers. Not only was she not suppressed, but she was also able to calmly counterattack. "It's much more exciting than I imagined." Below the stage, Wang Li raised his handsome eyebrows lightly with a frivolous smile on his face. His eyes were as cold as the ice water of a 1,000-year deep pool, and it was impossible to tell whether he was happy or angry. On the Northern Star Peak spectator stand, Qiu Xingyi, who was ranked first on the Heaven Marshal ranking, watched the battle on the stage in surprise. "It seems like there are many outstanding newcomers this year. I think junior sister Qi won't have it easy." Rumble. 20 to 30 majestic large ice pillars fell continuously. The piercingly cold aura covered the sky and earth, and the bone-piercing cold spread from the stage in all directions. Although Long Xuanxuang's attack rhythm was especially fast, Qi Qianying's movement speed was even more agile. She was as agile as a dragonfly on water, and she continuously changed her position. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Qi Qianying tiptoed and stepped on the ice pillar that had fallen on the stage. She soared into the sky and flew towards Long Xuanxuang's position. Whoosh! The snowstorm roared. Under Long Xuanxuang's control, the endless cold that filled the sky and earth whistled like a hurricane. Numerous sharp ice mirrors and ring-shaped wind blades rapidly formed and pounced towards Qi Qianying. Facing such a concentrated attack, Qi Qianying did not panic at all. She waved her hand and threw a silver needle. Buzz, as it moved, the silver needle shone brightly. The condensed light converged on the outside, like a sharp sword shadow. Wherever it went, it was like a hot knife through butter. All the wind blades and ice mirrors that came into contact with it were all shattered by the impact. The majestic ice whirlwind was directly torn open. It was like a sharp arrow that broke through the storm whirlpool, piercing through the periphery and reaching the center. Long Xuanxuang frowned slightly. Her palms faced each other, and a spiral-shaped white aura rapidly formed a frost sword that was overflowing with cold air. Ice blue light patterns flashed, and circles of aura spread out. With a single thought, the frost blade sword flew through the air and faced the phantom silver needles head-on. Bang! As soon as the two collided, a violent shock wave erupted in the sky, and the condensed light patterns exploded in the air. At the same time that the silver needle was repelled, Long Xuanxuang actually retreated without hesitation. Swoosh, however, in the next moment, a silver shadow surrounded by flowing light flew towards her again. The sound of the airwave cutting through the air was especially clear. The second incomparably sharp silver needle was reflected in Long Xuanxuang's narrowed eyes. There was more than one silver needle. In a hurry, Long Xuanxuang retreated and dodged. Then, beams of dazzling silver light shot through the air, like the meteors that had been flying for tens of thousands of years. They dragged their tails through the air and attacked Long Xuanxuang. Long Xuanxuang's lily-white hand condensed, and a short ice dagger that resembled white jade appeared in her palm. One after another, the silver needles attacked. Long Xuanxuang continuously used the ice dagger in her hand to deflect the silver needles. Ding ding ding, the crisp sound continued to spread. The air was not filled with sparks, but with chaotic true inner force and condensed ice energy. Qi Qianying's attack was swift and fierce, dazzling and overwhelming. Even though Long Xuanxuang was able to block the silver needles accurately, her position was getting lower and lower. In the blink of an eye, she was forced back to the ground by Qi Qianying. The moment Long Xuanxuang returned to the stage, a dozen dull sounds overlapped with each other. Long Xuanxuang's expression changed slightly. The audience was shocked with Long Xuanxuang as the center. A dozen silver needles fell to the ground and formed a circle around her. Buzz, before Long Xuanxuang could react, the dozen of silver needles around her all gave off an extremely strong energy wave at the same time. Every two silver needles connected with each other and formed a circle of light. The space inside the circle of light immediately fell into an uneasy state of distortion. Countless sharp auras attacked from all directions. Qi Qianying hovered in the air, looking down at Long Xuanxuang. Her lips moved slightly as she softly shouted, "Thousand feathers godly kill." Whoosh! Invisible surging waves of air swept out in all directions. Inside the circle of light, countless sharp arrows of light suddenly appeared out of thin air. Each arrow of light flashed with a cold light. From all directions, up, down, left, right, from all angles, they struck towards Long Xuanxuang, who was in the middle. Bang, bang, bang! The stage inside the circle of light cracked and exploded. The thick stone tiles were instantly pulverized. Thousands of light beams intertwined in the air and shot into the sky. The audience was shocked. Even Yi Yao, Zhao Qingyi, and the others couldn't help but change their expressions. Not good. Chapter 12:35. Thousand Feathers Divine Kill. Dozens of silver needles formed a circle, like a terrifying barrier that was triggered instantly. An unparalleled killing intent suddenly burst out from the inside, shattering the stone tiles on the ground inch by inch and crushing them into powder. Tens of thousands of dazzling light beams interweaved with each other, tearing apart the space inside. Long Xuanxuang's pupils constricted to the size of a needle. In the next moment, countless aurora arrows intertwined with an aura that could tear everything apart. Boom! Like a storm of arrows, a destructive force erupted from within the huge halo, and dazzling rays of light soared into the sky. The terrifying power was concentrated within the circle of light, intertwining and tearing, and the platform inside immediately caved in, revealing dense and neat vertical cracks. However, the area outside the circle of light was intact, showing that not a single bit of power had leaked out. In the blink of an eye, Long Xuanxuang's elegant figure was immediately drowned in the endless rain of light arrows. Oh no! The disciples of Beichen Peak Academy were all shocked, their eyes wide open. Just a moment ago, they were all cheering for Long Xuanxuang's performance, but in the blink of an eye, she was already in danger. Sister Xuanxuang? Yi Yao, Wu Mian, Zhao Qingkai and the rest were also anxious. On the other hand, Chu Hen and Wu Yen frowned, their eyes fixed on the chaotic power within the storm of arrows. Women are really scary when they get serious. Wang Li shook her head, showing a cynical and lazy look. On the other side, Pei Ye's lips curled into a cold arc, looking at the situation in front of him with a faint smile. At this moment, the disciples of Dongxian Peak Academy had already begun to celebrate. Haha, we really can't expect too much from a new disciple. It's not bad that she lasted for so long. In the entire martial sect, I'm afraid there's no female disciple who can be compared to senior Sister Qianing. However, at this moment, the noise from below the stage suddenly stopped. Everyone present was startled. Even the high-ranking elders and the 8 masters of the peak courtyards on the Star Peak's viewing platform revealed surprised expressions. What's that? The cold and desolate killing force gradually faded away. Inside the sunken light circle, where all the bricks had been crushed, there was an ice ball with a diameter of 7 to 8 meters. The snow-white sphere exuded an icy chill. It looked like a huge pearl. The surface of the snowball was covered with fine, deep, round holes and long, neat, vertical marks. Gotcha! Just at this moment, countless cracks appeared on the snowball. Then, with a soft bang sound like a bubble breaking, the huge snowball exploded into frost and ice crystals that filled the sky. At this moment, the cold and elegant figure once again appeared in everyone's line of sight. What? Everyone was shocked. The hearts of the Beichen Peak Academy disciples lit up. The eyes of Yi Yao, Wu Yen, Zhao Qingyi and the rest were also shining brightly. Long Xuanxuang's aura was still strong, her eyes like the moon, dazzling. Although there were no obvious wounds on her body, there were a few bloodstains with red ice crystals on the back of her left hand. At the center of her brows, a snowflake-shaped spirit tattoo faintly flickered with a strange soft light. What a strong ice attribute bloodline boundary! On the Star Peak's viewing platform, Qiu Xingyi, who was ranked first on the heavenly martial list, muttered in surprise. Even the martial sect master's eyes were filled with surprise. The atmosphere below the stage was changing. Long Xuanxuang slightly raised her head, her pair of phoenix eyes looking straight at Qi Qianying in the sky. Buzz! At the same time, a cold light flashed, and Qi Qianying instantly disappeared. Before the crowd could find her position, a strong gust of wind directly attacked from behind Long Xuanxuang. Her position changed so quickly like a spirit, appearing and disappearing unpredictably. Feeling the majestic force behind her, Long Xuanxuang slightly leaned to the side, and a thick ice vortex swept out from the center of her palm. In an instant, the surface of the platform behind him split apart, and numerous icy teeth that seemed like saw-teeth broke out from beneath the ground. Row after row of sharp ice fangs, like the huge mouth of a man-eating flower, closed in on Qi Qianying, who was charging towards him. Bang! However, at the same time when the sharp ice teeth closed in, Qi Qianying once again disappeared on the spot. When her opponent changed her position, Long Xuanxuang put her palms together, releasing the powerful boundary power of her bloodline. Rumble. The stage trembled, and then an ice mountain that was almost 100 feet tall immediately rose from the soaring sky battle platform. The cold air that covered the sky and the earth spread wantonly. The majestic ice mountain occupied almost a third of the entire soaring sky battle platform. It was especially spectacular. Long Xuanxuang stood at the peak of the ice mountain, while ice vortexes enveloped the heavens and the earth. She seemed like a mysterious shaman spirit that controlled the energy of ice and snow. Everyone in the surroundings exclaimed endlessly with admiration. Long Xuanxuang probably intended to control the entire battle platform and not give Qi Qianying any chance to get close to her. Swish! In the next second, a silver needle pierced through the air and shot towards Qi Qianying. Long Xuanxuang's beautiful eyes narrowed slightly, and then she issued a command in her heart. An enormous ice pillar stretched out from the cliff beneath her, and it seemed like a bridge that hung in midair as it intercepted the silver needle in midair. Buzz! Space trembled slightly, and then Qi Qianying immediately flashed to the ice pillar that hung in midair. She flipped her palm, and then 3 silver needles shot out explosively from between her fingers. Whoosh! At practically the exact same moment, an enormous and powerful ice spear descended from the sky, and it didn't slow down in the slightest as it struck the 3 silver needles away. Bang! The ice spear collided with the enormous ice pillar, and like a collapsing bridge, large chunks of ice came crashing down. As expected, Qi Qianying disappeared from where she was once again and reappeared at another location. However, Long Xuanxuang seemed to be prepared for this. The moment she reappeared, an arc-shaped wind blade that was dozens of meters wide tore through the air and slashed downwards. Bang! Bang! Intense energy collided continuously on the surface of the platform. Qi Qianying's instant kill technique could be described as elusive, and the speed at which she changed her position was dazzling. However, the most shocking thing was Long Xuanxuang. No matter how fast Qi Qianying's attacks were, her opponent was always able to react in time. One after another, enormous ice pillars rose from the surface of the platform. They looked like sparkling and translucent ice sculptures. Long Xuanxuang kept Qi Qianying within a certain defensive perimeter, and after a series of attacks, Qi Qianying was unable to get close to her. Everyone below the stage was even more surprised. Even Wu Yan shook her head in amazement. Junior Sister Long is truly unexpected, there's not a single gap in her defense. She's truly amazing. Zhao Qingyi nodded in praise. Chu Hen's eyes narrowed slightly, and his brows furrowed as he pondered. At this moment, the audience's heartstrings were stretched taut. Everyone was extremely nervous. No one had expected that a new disciple like Long Xuanxuang would be able to fight with Qi Qianying, who was ranked 4th on the Heaven Martial leaderboard, to such an extent. Boom! An extraordinarily sharp wind blade collided with Qi Qianying's palm energy. Ice shards filled the sky, along with chaotic inner energy, and a vast wave of air surged forth. Qi Qianying didn't disappear on the spot this time. She looked at Long Xuanxuang, who was standing on the peak of the ice mountain, in surprise. "You're actually able to pinpoint my location every single time? You're indeed quite capable." Long Xuanxuang lifted her eyes slightly and replied calmly, "Wherever the silver needle goes, it'll be the location you've teleported to." What? The moment her words left her mouth, the entire place burst into an uproar. Many martial ancestor sect's disciples were shocked and enlightened. Was this the secret of Qi Qianying's instant kill tactic? Wu Yan, Zhao Qingyi, Yi Yao, and the rest were shocked. As for Wang Li, Pei Yi, Qiu Xingyi, and a few other geniuses, they were rather calm. Chu Hen's expression was calm as well. In fact, he had long seen through Qi Qianying's battle technique. Her instant kill tactic was somewhat similar to his soaring celestial flash. One used the silver needle as a guide while the other used the blue rand sword as a guide. However, it was obvious that Qi Qianying's instant kill tactic was much more powerful than his soaring celestial flash. The instant kill tactic allowed one to move to many different locations. The soaring celestial flash, on the other hand, could only choose one location. Moreover, in terms of frequency of usage, the instant kill tactic far surpassed the soaring celestial flash. In comparison, Chu Han was slightly inferior to Qi Qianying in terms of instant kill tactic. So? Qi Qianying raised her eyebrows slightly. I've memorized the locations of all the silver needles, and I can also sense the faint fluctuation of energy coming from them. Long Xuanxuang replied. Clamor. The moment her words left her mouth, the entire place burst into an uproar again. Chapter 1236. I've memorized the positions of all the silver needles, and I can also sense the weak fluctuations of power coming from them, Long Xuanxuang replied indifferently. Whoosh! In an instant, the surroundings were filled with clamorous noise while astonishment faintly surged out from the hearts of all the geniuses. Even the martial ancestor realm higher-ups on the Star Peak viewing platform nodded approvingly. This woman is extremely talented. I wonder why she wasn't famous before? An elder asked casually. Haha, do you still need to ask? I'm afraid Beichen Peak Academy hid her on purpose. Do you think so? Dean Luo-tsang? Dean Luo-tsang only smiled awkwardly in response to the questions from the people around him, and did not say much. Based on her current performance, Long Xuanxuang's strength was probably above Yi Yao's. Previously, Beichen Peak Academy only valued Yi Yao, but not Long Xuanxuang. This was a big miscalculation for them. Luo-tsang secretly thought that he hoped Long Xuanxuang would not hold a grudge in the future. Whoosh! The bone-chilling ice vortex covered the sky and earth, like a winter blizzard enveloping the huge Lingshao arena. On the arena, on the peak of the ice mountain, Long Xuanxuang showed her extraordinary elegance. Huge ice pillars stood on the stone platform like luxurious ice sculptures. Qi Qianying's eyes glowed faintly, and her beautiful eyebrows raised slightly. You can actually remember all the positions. It's really not easy, but, she paused, and a strange energy wave was released from her body, and the invisible airflow became extremely agitated. Whoosh! The rapid airflow spread across the arena, and several powerful auras surged from different positions around Long Xuanxuang. In an instant, the expressions of the many spectators changed. Wang Li, Pei Yi, Qiu Xingyi, and the other top geniuses narrowed their eyes. 5 identical Qi Qianying had appeared in the air above the soaring firmament battle ring. This is Senior Sister Qian Ying's bloodline limit? It's a divine body that can clone itself. This was almost everyone's first time witnessing Qi Qianying's bloodline limit. Everyone was amazed as they stared at the 5 Qi Qianyings whose auras were exactly the same. The same bloodline boundary as Han Ichuan? Chu Hen's eyes darkened as he muttered to himself. Han Ichuan, who had stayed with the ancestral butterfly clan with Qiao Shaowan, possessed a constitution that allowed him to create clones. However, in comparison, the aura of Qi Qianying's avatar was exactly the same. There was not the slightest difference. It was impossible to tell which one was the real one. Whoosh! There seemed to be a sharp vibration in the air. The 5 Qi Qianyings simultaneously flashed the silver needles in their hands. What about now? Can you find where I am? Her cold voice was like water from an ancient well. Although it was calm, there was a sense of loneliness in it. As soon as she finished speaking, the 5 Qi Qianyings stepped into the air and charged toward Long Xuanxuang at the peak of the ice mountain. The 5 Qi Qianyings immediately brandished the silver needles in their hands. Beams of light that flickered with dazzling divine radiance shuttled through the sky, tearing apart the icy vortex airflow. They were like flying arrows that pierced through the nebula, showing off their sharpness. The hearts of the crowd rose to their throats once more. Yi Yao, Zhao Qingkai, Wu Mian, and the others all frowned with solemn expressions on their faces. However, at this moment, the snowflake mark on Long Xuanxuang's forehead blossomed with a dazzling light. It was like a divine explosion of light. Whoosh! A cold current that nearly froze the air stirred the sky and formed a roaring snowstorm. Then, in the sky above Long Xuanxuang, a violent wave of energy swept out. Endless cold air gathered together. Under the astonished gazes of the crowd, a huge transparent figure appeared between heaven and earth. The figure was like a dream. Its facial features were slightly blurred and its face was covered by a veil. It gave people the feeling that it was a snow demoness that controlled the power of 10,000 years of winter. This is? Everyone was shocked and their eyes widened. Whoosh! An incomparably cold and solid icy vortex surged in all directions. All the silver needles that were attacking Long Xuanxuang were frozen in place. Create with cold, and solidify with ice. Long Xuanxuang's eyes slightly trembled as she formed seals with her 2 fingers. The snow demoness behind her spread out her arms and emitted a powerful aura similar to that of an ancient witch. The 5 Qi Qianyings couldn't help but pause. A thin layer of frost quietly condensed around their bodies. In the next moment, an incomparably sturdy ice spear descended from the sky like a divine punishment and struck one of them. Boom! Qi Qianying, who was smashed to the ground, exploded into a ball of golden light. One. Kacha! Along with the sound of ice rubbing against each other, 3 10-meter-tall giant guards condensed in the air. These giant guards were formed from ice. They were clad in armor and held a spear in their hands. They looked like lifeless undead warriors. The spears, which were filled with sharp and lethal power, burst forth with a magnificent and powerful storm spear rain. Bang! 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 3 Qi Qianyings were shattered by the frost giant in a row. Amazing! Great! The Beichen Peak Academy disciples were excited and their confidence was restored. At this moment, even the 4 Peak Masters revealed a solemn expression. Especially the Beichen Peak Master, Yuan Shang, who couldn't help but clench his fists. Created with cold, formed with wind and snow. Dongfang Hengji murmured softly. His eyes flashed and he paused before he continued, solidified with ice. It's actually so similar to the Ice Empress power? Bang! After killing 4 Qi Qianyings in a row, Long Xuanxuang instantly turned the situation around. Qi Qianying, the only one left, was immediately surrounded by 3 giant guards. The 3 ice giants extended their spears at the same time. White pillars of light shot toward Qi Qianying from different directions. The 3 white pillars of light shot toward Qi Qianying and immediately formed a circular ice prison. Qi Qianying was directly trapped in the ice prison. Her body was frozen, and she could not move at all. She's trapped me. The Beichen Peak Academy disciples became more and more excited. You've lost, Long Xuanxuang said indifferently. However, there was no trace of panic on her face. Instead, she smirked and said with a playful smile, "Are you sure? Are you sure?" These 3 simple words caused everyone's heartstrings to tremble. Thud! The sound of a sharp weapon piercing through ice rang out from the left side of Long Xuanxuang. Everyone's eyes suddenly narrowed. A slender silver needle with mysterious patterns firmly pierced into the ice wall behind the iceberg. Rapid airflow surged as a ghost-like figure flashed through the air. In an instant, the 6 Qi Qianying suddenly appeared on the left side of Long Xuanxuang. What? Where is the real body? The Beichen Peak Academy disciples were shocked, but the Dongxian Peak Academy disciples were overjoyed. Looks like you've missed the most important position. Along with a light tone, an extremely powerful and majestic aura burst out from the 6th Qi Qianying's body. The palm energy was like an undercurrent in the deep sea. Purring. An incomparably heavy explosion sounded out. The huge snow wind banshee image that enveloped Long Xuanxuang was immediately torn apart by the impact. The aftermath of the chaotic energy swept out in all directions. The moment the snow wind enchantress shattered, Qi Qianying's palm energy landed on Long Xuanxuang's body without any hindrance. In the end, she still lost. The hearts of many of Long Xuanxuang's supporters sank to the bottom. But at this moment a frightening power came crashing down. Long Xuanxuang, who did not have the time to dodge, was directly shattered into a pile of ice fragments. What is this? Ice clone? The Dongxian Peak Master, Ao Yunzhuang, subconsciously blurted out. Before the crowd could react, a clear voice quietly came from a large ice pillar on the west side of the high firmament platform. I'm sorry, I did not miss any position. Hua! At this moment, the many elders of the martial sect could no longer sit still. Even the various peak courtyard masters could not help but stand up. Tens of thousands of gazes uniformly swept towards the same place. At the top of the west side of the icicle, a beautiful figure with peerless beauty, as cold as frost, stood sideways. In her hand there was a light longbow that was pulled to the fullest, overflowing with colorful lights, swaying luxuriously on the bowstring. A solid arrow flickered with a gorgeous light pattern. A trap within a trap, a spy within a spy. While the crowd was still shocked by the appearance of the 6 Qi Qianying, the real Long Xuanxuang had already secretly drawn her profound rain bao xiu. Without any hesitation, Long Xuanxuang loosened her fingers. A beam of divine light pierced through the sky, stunning the heavens and earth, illuminating countless pairs of eyes. Qi Qianying's pupils rapidly shrank to the size of needles. A trace of shock quietly spread on her pretty face. Recently, many readers have come to ask me why I don't reply to their comments. I need to mention here that the book, The Divine King of Martial Apex, was first published on the Chasing Waves website. I don't have the authority to reply to other websites. For example, Palm Reader, Tencent Book Reader, Migu, etc. I don't have the authority to reply or communicate with them. As a result, many readers have voted for me and sent me gifts, but I can't reply or thank them. When I don't update in time, I can only inform everyone on the Chasing Waves website, which has caused a lot of criticism. I really appreciate the support of every reader. It's not that I don't want to reply to everyone, but I don't have the authority to do so. Therefore, if anyone has any questions, feel free to leave a message in the Chasing Waves book review section. Even if it's just a casual conversation, I will reply to everyone one by one. Chapter 1237. A trap within a trap, a spy within a spy. Swoosh! In an instant, a beam of divine light pierced through the sky, stunning the world. Like an arrow streaking across the night sky, it flew toward Qi Qianying on the ice mountain. The heavy whistling sound of air waves was incomparably clear. The world spun, and the space trembled. Hiss! The rapid and sharp sound stimulated the eardrums of everyone present. Under countless shocked gazes, the colorful arrow directly pierced through the right shoulder of the 6th Qi Qianying, breathtaking, brilliant, dazzling. Frost and dust filled the sky. Qi Qianying's pupils rapidly dilated, and her pretty face trembled. Hit! Everyone from the Beichen Peak Academy felt their hearts almost jump out of their throat. Their eyes lit up. Yi Yao, Zhao Qingkai, Wu Yan, and the others also revealed expressions of excitement. Sister Xuanxuang is going to win. Qi Qianying's right shoulder was pierced by the mystic Rain Bao's ice arrow, and she drifted down like a feather. Her body glowed with a bright golden light, and then with a bang, she turned into golden shadows that filled the sky. What? A gust of bleak and sudden cold wind blew past, and the whole place was deathly silent. Whoosh! The next moment, true yuan waves that resembled fallen leaves fluttered in the sky. On the large ice pillar on the west side of the soaring sky arena, Long Xuanxuang let out a soft sigh, and a faint trace of loneliness appeared in her clear eyes. An invisible wave of air spread out, and everyone's pupils shrank slightly. Behind Long Xuanxuang stood a delicate and refined figure. Qi Qianying held a silver needle in one hand, and the silver needle gently touched Long Xuanxuang's back. Although it did not pierce through, the outcome was already decided. You've lost, junior sister Long. The reversal of scene after scene had already caused most of the people present to be at a loss. Their hearts were in turmoil, and their thoughts could not keep up with the pace of the two. What's going on? There's another clone. No, including the main body, there's a total of 6. 6? Including the one just now, we've already eliminated 5 of them, and there's still one trap. The voices of the crowd below the stage paused, followed by a thick sense of astonishment and disbelief. The fifth Qi Qianying, who had been imprisoned in the ice prison by the 3 frost giants, had disappeared without a trace. This is? Everyone looked at each other. Was the fifth Qi Qianying really the original Qi Qianying? Everyone in the room was confused. Surprised, right? Qi Qianying asked softly. Long Xuanxuang glanced sideways as a trace of doubt flashed across her brows. According to her thinking, the last one to appear was definitely Qi Qianying's main body, and the first 5 were undoubtedly clones. However, that was not the case. The corner of Qi Qianying's mouth raised slightly as she continued to say, "Not only does my instant killing tactic allow me to change my position at will, but I can also switch between my main body and my clone at will, Hua." As soon as these words were spoken, the audience couldn't help but be in an uproar. A look of enlightenment appeared on everyone's faces. In other words, Long Xuanxuang's judgment was correct. The last Qi Qianying to appear was the original Qi Qianying. However, due to her unique bloodline power, she had immediately switched places with her clone the moment Long Xuanxuang's arrow flew towards her. Thus, the fifth Qi Qianying who had been imprisoned became the original Qi Qianying. This was the secret of the instant killing tactic. It was also the bloodline power that Qi Qianying was most proud of. It was because of this that Qi Qianying managed to turn the tables at the last moment. I see. Long Xuanxuang nodded. At the same time, the chilly air flow that pervaded the world quickly receded. The ice mountain and the many ice pillars on the platform also crumbled inch by inch, turning into ice crystal fragments that filled the sky and dissipating in the air. Qi Qianying withdrew the silver needle in her hand and returned to the stage with Long Xuanxuang. Relatively speaking, the outcome was relatively peaceful. However, the audience below the stage had been nervous the entire time. With that arrow, Long Xuanxuang had avoided hitting Qi Qianying's vitals, choosing to hit her right shoulder instead. Qi Qianying hadn't gone all out in the end either. Although the battle between the two women hadn't been a violent one, nor had the entire arena been blown apart, it had been a battle of wits and schemes. Time after time of reversals and gorgeous collisions, it was truly an eye-opener. The winner is Dongxian Peak Academy's Qi Qianying. Elder Lu announced loudly. The Dongxian Peak Academy disciples cheered. Although Beichen Peak Academy felt it was a pity, they too applauded Long Xuanxuang's performance. Even though she had lost, it was still admirable. Junior Sister Long is already very impressive. She didn't lose unjustly. Beichen Peak Academy didn't embarrass themselves this time. Not at all. This was the affirmation everyone gave to Long Xuanxuang. Cheers and cheers rose and fell, resounding through the heavens and earth. On Xingqing Peak, the Peak Academy masters all had their own thoughts in their hearts. "Ha! Sidu Song, the West Dome Peak master, said with a profound smile. She nearly lost. It seems that it will be a little difficult for Dongxian Peak Academy to rely on Qi Qianying to become the champion this year." Dongxian Peak Master, Ao Yunzhuang's eyes slightly sank as he glanced sideways, but did not reply. On the contrary, the South Spiritual Academy Master, Ning Qiushui, spoke with even more praise, that Long Xuanxuang's talent is excellent. "I'm afraid that it's even above that of Yi Yao. I wonder if Peak Master Yuan Shang has secretly taught her?" Without waiting for Yuan Shang's reply, Sidu Song smiled frivolously. "Long Xuanxuang and Yi Yao have completely different fighting styles. How can a master teach two different disciples?" Yuan Shang frowned and coldly snorted. So what if I taught her? So what if I didn't teach her? I only know that she's a disciple of my Beichen Peak Academy. As for her talent, you don't have to worry about her bloodline. That's reasonable. However, after today, everyone from the Bachan Peak Academy will be excluded from the top 4. Situ Song did not hide the ridicule in his words. Currently, the most powerful disciples of the Bachan Peak Academy, Wu Yen, Yi Yao and Long Xuanxuang, had all been eliminated. Only Chu Hen, who had many controversies, was left. The situation wasn't looking good. When the Shao Alliance arrives, the Bachan Peak Academy will stop here. Big Sister Xuanxuang, you're really amazing. Long Xuanxuang, who had just returned to the stage, was instantly welcomed with praising gazes from the people around her. Long Xuanxuang shook her head and looked at Chu Hen with slight disappointment. Unfortunately, she still lost. What kind of loss is this? No one knew that Qi Qianying's bloodline boundary would be so strange. If it wasn't for her special power, she would have been the one who lost, Wu Mian repeatedly refuted. Chu Hen also patted the other party's shoulder and gave him a look of affirmation. To be honest, this result was already the best. This was because Chu Hen didn't wish for Long Xuanxuang to meet any of the remaining 3 who had advanced to the top 4. Chapter 1238. Next is the second battle. South Spiritual Peak Academy's Wang Li versus East Profound Peak Academy's Lu Feng. As soon as Elder Lu's voice fell, the entire star-raising peak immediately erupted in shouts that soared to the heavens. However, the cheers were completely one-sided. Wang Li. Senior brother Wang Li will win. Senior brother Wang Li is the champion. As the second ranker on the Heaven Martial Leaderboard, Wang Li's popularity was undeniable. However, it was worth mentioning that his opponent, Lu Feng, wasn't on the Heaven Martial Leaderboard. Whether it was because of his good luck or something else, Lu Feng's opponents weren't on the Heaven Martial Leaderboard since the start of the top 32. This was also the reason why he was able to enter the top 8 in such a stable state. Soon after, under the cheers of the crowd, the two of them stepped onto the arena. Lu Feng was tall and muscular, and his appearance was rather handsome. But even then, he seemed to be extremely weak before Wang Li. Wang, senior brother Wang Li, please guide me. Lu Feng's voice was a little uneasy. Wang Li revealed a gentle and lazy smile. Junior brother Lu Feng, you seem to be very nervous? Lu Feng frowned and felt a chill down his spine when he saw Wang Li's frivolous smile. He clenched his fists, and a surge of yuan qi surged out from his body. However, before he could do anything, Lu Feng was like a frosted eggplant, wilting. He slowly raised his left hand and said softly, I forfeit. Shh. The audience booed and shook their heads to express their disinterest. However, most of them expressed their understanding. Facing the second ranker on the Heaven Martial Leaderboard and the previous champion, Lu Feng didn't have the slightest intention to fight. Since it was obvious that he would lose, he wouldn't lose too badly if he chose to forfeit. Wise. Wang Li smiled with a hint of cynicism in his frivolousness. At the same time, Wang Li's position was distorted. His body was twisted together and he disappeared from the arena. In the blink of an eye, he was back outside the arena. Qiu Xingyi's eyes lit up as he muttered to himself, the power of this guy's 1,000 illusion bloodline is getting stronger. After Wang Liang left, Lu Feng heaved a sigh of relief. He waved his hand and wiped the cold sweat off his forehead. Then, he ran off the stage as if he was fleeing. Humph! Pei Yi snorted disdainfully from below the stage. Trash. Lu Feng has forfeited the second battle. Wang Li of the South Spiritual Peak Academy is the winner. Elder Lu was not the least bit surprised by this result. He lifted his gaze and looked at the golden light curtain suspended in the sky above the star-raising peak. Long Xuanxuang and Lu Feng's names quietly shattered into ice shards. Also, Chu Hen against Shao Alliance, Pei Yi against Wen Tao. These two matches hadn't started yet. Elder Lu glanced at the audience and hesitated for a moment before continuing to announce, the third match, Pei Yi of the West Sky Peak Academy versus Wen Tao of the South Spirit Peak Academy. Voila! His shouts were not any weaker than Wang Li's. However, compared to the one-sided momentum just now, Pei Ye's opponent, Wen Tao, also had a lot of support. "Come on, senior brother Wen Tao. We believe you can win. Senior brother Wen Tao will win." Wen Tao, ranked 6th on the Heaven Martial list. His strength was also at the top of many martial ancestor realm disciples. In the quarterfinals yesterday, Zhao Qingkai had been defeated by Wen Tao. Moreover, he only lasted for about 10 moves before he was eliminated. Thinking of the situation yesterday, Zhao Qingkai pouted his lips with some hidden bitterness. "Do you wish for him to lose?" Zhao Qingyi laughed. However, Zhao Qingkai actually shook his head. The few people beside him were stunned. Yi Yao also casually asked, "Wasn't he the one who eliminated you yesterday?" "Yes, he was the one who eliminated me. However, senior brother Wen Tao is rather nice. He knew that I was a new disciple and deliberately showed mercy." The few of them couldn't help but smile. Although the top geniuses on the Heaven Martial list were more arrogant, there was no lack of gentle disciples like Wu Yan and Wen Tao. These kinds of people were rather amiable and approachable. Very soon, 2 young figures with extraordinary bearings ascended the soaring sky arena one after the other. The flow of air unwittingly sped up. Pei Yi crossed his arms in front of him and looked indifferently at the slender, handsome young man in front of him. "Compared to those trash who only know how to run away, you have some courage." Wen Tao's face darkened and his brows were full of seriousness. "Humph, others may be afraid of you, but I'm not. Very good. I hope I can still see your confident expression later." Wang. As his voice fell, a majestic force suddenly erupted from Wen Tao's body. Between heaven and earth, it set off a raging wave of true essence. The mighty power of spiritual power was like a void dragon python. Wen Tao's eyes were sharp like lightning, and both of his palms struck out in anger. "I'm going to teach you a lesson. Tiger Divine Seal. Roar!" A tiger's roar shattered the mountains and rivers. In an instant, a fierce white beam of light surged out from Wen Tao's palms. The sky lost its color, the wind rose, and the clouds raged. The surroundings of the entire high sky arena immediately fell into darkness. The raging palm pillar went all the way towards Pei Yi. Wherever it went, the surface of the arena violently burst open, and a deep and wide ravine quickly split open. Inside the incomparably ferocious palm pillar, a solid white tiger was like a divine beast hidden within, emitting an endless ferocious aura that could destroy the world. He went all out the moment he made his move. Wen Tao did not hold back at all. Facing the terrifying power that was coming towards him, Pei Ye's eyes turned cold, and the corners of his mouth curled into a contemptuous smile. He did not move and stood straight on the spot. Bang! There was an earth-shattering sound, and the huge arena immediately erupted with a violent energy shock wave like a meteorite colliding. Layers of stone bricks were blown away, and the thick soil and stones were like a swarm of frightened locusts and moths. Countless deep fissures rapidly spread out in all directions, reaching all the way to the edge of the fighting ring. The fierce aftermath spread all the way out of the arena, and the elders of the martial sect immediately activated the protective formation to resist the violent power that overflowed from inside. What a powerful power! Everyone below the arena widened their eyes, and their hearts trembled. Wen Tao's aura continued to rise, and the white tiger within the palm pillar's shock wave was furious. Its body flickered with extremely dazzling dark golden patterns. Bang! Right at this moment, another explosion resounded, and a thick crimson-red flame spread out from where Pei Yi stood. Everyone's expression changed. Subsequently, a blurry afterimage moved swiftly towards the violent pillar of palm. The afterimage was like an all-powerful shadow blade divine light, and everywhere it passed, the material pillar of palm was actually split into two from the middle, and it slashed towards both sides. It was like a flaming sickle that cut through bamboo, and it swept through everything in its path as it went straight down. Boom! Bang! The sound of power being crushed overlapped, and it was deafening. The white tiger that was hidden within the palm was also instantly penetrated by the shadow blade. Wen Tao was shocked. In a hurry, he wanted to attack again, but the afterimage that was like a hot knife through butter had already rushed in front of him. "Is that all you've got?" Accompanied by a contemptuous and mocking voice, a face full of playfulness immediately came into Wen Tao's eyes. The latter's pupils shrank, and a feeling of extreme unease surged in his heart. There was no chance to fight back. Roar! The Qilin's roar that resounded through the sky directly invaded the minds of everyone present, and everyone only felt that their souls could not help but tremble faintly. The invisible sound wave impact all rushed towards Wen Tao. The latter's eyes widened, the aura in his body surged, and a trace of blood flowed from the corner of his mouth. Wen Tao endured the pain in his body, leaped up and flashed towards the sky. But in the next moment, a fierce palm landed solidly on his chest. Bang! A circle of condensed crimson light appeared, and Wen Tao immediately flew out. A large mouthful of blood sprayed out, and Wen Tao, who fell heavily to the ground, was dragged along the stage, and the gravel behind him collapsed and exploded inch by inch. Without waiting for the inertial impact on his body to disappear, a loud boom sounded, and Pei Yi instantly flashed behind his opponent. The moment he landed, there seemed to be a thunderous force sweeping out. Wen Tao was once again shaken out. The violent impact from behind, together with the previous inertial force, hit him from the front and back. In an instant, many blood vessels on Wen Tao's body burst open, and his internal organs were all injured. He fell to the ground powerlessly, and directly became a bloody man. At this moment, everyone in the audience only felt a chill on their back. Pei Yi. Chapter 1239. Bang! The violent shockwave was like a tsunami that erupted in an instant. Wen Tao fell to the ground, covered in blood. Many of his blood vessels had burst and his internal organs were all severely injured. In an instant, everyone turned pale with fright. Their hearts trembled and chills ran down their spines. While they were shocked by Pei Yi's viciousness, they were even more shocked by the opponent's terrifying strength. Wen Tao ranked 6th on the heavenly martial list. He couldn't even take a single move from his opponent. Shocking and terrifying. A bleak cold wind whistled past as Pei Yi stood proudly on the platform like a ferocious tiger or dragon that possessed a vast imposing aura, and he emitted an extraordinary domineering aura that was blessed by the heavens. He suppressed the entire audience, as if to announce his position as the overlord. This guy? Wang Li's eyes darkened, a trace of coldness surging in her eyes. Qiu Xingyi, who was on the Xingqing Peak viewing platform, shook his head lightly. Too ruthless. Zhao Qingkai gritted her teeth, but she couldn't bear it. In yesterday's quarterfinals, Wen Tao had shown mercy to her, so she was still more supportive of the other party. Although she knew that it was impossible to win against Pei Yi, she didn't expect the latter to be so ruthless. Yi Yao, Long Xuanxuang, Zhao Qingyi and the rest also frowned, their hearts heavy. Wu Yan, who was supporting himself with a walking stick, seemed to see his previous self, a trace of helplessness flashing in his eyes. Shortly after, he turned to look at Chu Hen beside him. However, Chu Hen merely coldly stared at the stage. Within his deep eyes, there was an unfathomable meaning. Winner, West Sky Peak Courtyard Pei Yi. Elder Lu hurriedly announced the results of the competition. He hurriedly signaled 2 medical elders to check on Wen Tao's condition. At the same time, the West Dome Peak Academy erupted in cheers and cheers. Congratulations to Senior Brother Pei Yi for entering the semi-finals. Senior Brother Pei Yi is the strongest. Senior Brother Pei Yi will win. In contrast, the South Spirit Peak Courtyard was dead silent. From the Peak Courtyard Master to the ordinary disciples, all of them had a gloomy expression. This is ridiculous. To think that he could injure Senior Brother Wen Tao so badly. Humph, don't be so smug. Let's see how long you can be happy when you meet Senior Brother Wang Li. Looking at Wen Tao being carried away, Ning Qiushui, the master of South Spirit Peak, frowned slightly and said, "This kid's character is too fierce, and his hostility is too strong." Her words were naturally for Sidu Song to hear. The latter replied disapprovingly, "Hee, youngsters. It's not too much to be a little hot-blooded. Moreover, a man must be ruthless. If you want to achieve great things, why bother with such trifles?" Ning Qiushui was a little angry, but there was nothing she could do. The battle for the top 4. In the blink of an eye, the third one was finished. Everyone who had gradually calmed down began to shift their gazes to the last 2 names on the golden light screen above the Star Pillar Peak. There's only one match left. I wonder if the Shao Alliance's senior brother is here? That's strange. Where did senior brother Shao go at this time? There were many arguments in the audience. Everyone was perplexed. Of course, except for Chu Hen. Next is the first match that was previously arranged last. Elder Lu could not continue to delay. As he spoke, he searched for Shao Alliance's figure in the crowd. Swoosh, at the same time, a figure rushed over from the direction of the West Dome Peak courtyard. Everyone's eyes lit up. This person was the disciple who was sent to find Shao Alliance. Senior Brother Qi is back. But why is he alone? The young disciple with the surname Qi flew and landed on the viewing platform of the Star Pillar Peak. Where is he? Elder Lu asked. The young disciple wanted to whisper in his ear. However, Elder Lu waved his hand and reprimanded in a deep voice, "Lord Sect Master and the 8 Hall Masters are all here. What's the need to be sneaky about? Just say it." The young disciple's face turned pale, and looked at the Lord on the highest platform in awe. This disciple deserves to die. Please forgive me, Lord Sect Master. Dongfang Hengji raised his hand slightly. It's all right. The disciple took a deep breath and replied in a solemn tone, "Shao Alliance is unable to participate." Wow, as soon as he said that, the audience suddenly became noisy. Unable to participate? What's going on? Everyone looked at each other and their hearts were filled with doubt. On the contrary, Yi Yao, Zhao Qingyi, Wu Mian and the others' eyes lit up. In this way, Chu Hen could directly advance. What's the reason? Elder Lu continued to ask. Heavily injured on the bed. It is said that last night, he was beaten half to death. These 2 simple sentences were like a boulder that had been thrown into a deep pool of water. It set off a monstrous wave. All sorts of noises rose and fell, causing waves of commotion. The West Dome Peak Lord, Situ Song, stood up. His eyes were filled with anger as he shouted, "Who did it?" The young disciple's body trembled and shook his head. "Shao Alliance's senior brother is very weak. I didn't have time to ask who injured him and he fell into a coma again. But I can see that he is very afraid of that person and seems to be very scared, beaten half to death. We still don't know who did it." In an instant, the entire Star Pillar Peak fell into chaos and speculation. What about Shun Hong and the others? Ask them and they will definitely know. They don't seem to be here today. Oh my God, this is strange. That Chu Hen got lucky again. He can still advance to the top 4. While everyone was guessing, Yi Yao and Wu Mian were especially happy. Haha, you are really lucky. Zhao Qingyi clapped her hands. Top 4, top 4. How many years has it been? Someone from our Beichen Peak Academy has finally entered the top 4. Although it was a mistake, at least we entered. Wu Mian's eyes lit up and he was very excited. In comparison, Chu Hen was especially calm. Long Xuan cast a questioning look at him, as if she had already guessed the situation. Chu Hen looked at her and smiled, not saying anything. Elder Lu heaved a sigh of relief and nodded in understanding. West Dome Academy's Shao Alliance is absent due to injury and is considered to have forfeited. The winner of this match is Beichen Peak Academy, Chu Hen. Bang! The words, Shao Alliance, on the golden light screen shattered into thousands of pieces, and Chu Hen immediately emitted a bright light. The other 3 names were as bright as stars, shining with a dazzling radiance. Such an outcome was truly out of everyone's expectations. Even the Bachan Peak Academy's disciples couldn't help but find it funny. This is the first time I've seen someone win 2 consecutive matches without a fight. He can be considered to be in the top 4. In the eyes of the crowd, it was like a farce. However, a small number of people cast doubtful gazes at Chu Hen. He is so calm that it's suspicious. Wang Li touched her chin and murmured. Pei Ye's eyes turned cold, and a disdainful smile appeared on his face. Even Qi Qianying stared meaningfully at the young figure who was the subject of much controversy. Her beautiful eyes roamed about as if she was thinking about something. Then, the battle for the top 4 is over. Tomorrow will be the semi-finals, Elder Lu said. However, this time, everyone present seemed to want to continue, and every single one of them seemed to be unsatisfied. It's over? It's not interesting at all. That's right. Out of 4 matches, 2 forfeits and 1 instant win. Boring. Wang Li and Chu Hen's opponents both forfeited their matches. The gap between Wen Tao and Pei Yi was huge, and there was no entertainment to speak of. In the entire battle for the top 4, only the match between Long Xuanshuang and Qi Qianying was enough to satisfy the audience. This was not what they wanted. There's no need to wait until tomorrow. Let's start the semi-finals today. Right at this moment, a loud and clear voice suddenly rang out from the crowd below the stage. As if it was the start of a rhythm, a chain reaction immediately broke out from the crowd. That's right, let's start. Final battle. Final battle. Continue. Continue. Their voices rang out in unison, as loud as thunder. Everyone from the 4 great peak academies had reached a unanimous decision. At this moment, even the senior elders on Xingqing Peak were looking forward to it, and even sect master Dongfang Hengji had no intention of leaving his seat. Elder Lu could not help but feel surprised. He waved his hand, signaling the crowd to calm down. It's not up to me to decide whether to continue or not. It depends on the wishes of the top 4 geniuses. With that, he directly threw the decision to Pei Yi, Wang Li, Qi Qianying, and Chu Hen. What answered the crowd was the high fighting spirit that came from Wang Li and Pei Yi. The cheers of the audience were like a prairie fire, causing everyone's blood to boil. Elder Lu said again, so, among the 4 of you, is there anyone who refuses to participate in the semi-finals today? No one objected. There seemed to be a faint flame burning in the eyes of Chu Hen, Pei Yi, and the rest. Elder Lu understood. Then, he waved his hand, and a majestic righteousness swept in all directions. Chapter 1240. I hereby announce that the semi-finals of the sect battle will begin immediately. Elder Lu's aura was like a loud horn being blown on the battlefield. In an instant, the entire Star Peak was engulfed in an earth-shattering uproar. Pei Yi! Pei Yi! Wang Li! Wang Li! West Sky Peak Academy will win. South Spirit Peak Academy's champion. Qi Qianying, Qi Qianying. Pei Yi and Wang Li were the most popular. They were like 2 tides that intertwined with each other. Qi Qianying from East Profound Peak Academy was also not to be outdone. Her cheers rose and fell one after another. In comparison, Chu Hen was slightly embarrassed. Due to Yi Yao's forfeit in the quarterfinals, many people blamed him for it. Although there were some who cheered for Chu Hen, their voices were quickly drowned out by the other 3 academies. In the eyes of the crowd, the outcome would be the same no matter which one of the 3 Chu Hen met. Then, let's take a look at the details of the match. Elder Lu raised his hand and shot out a ray of light towards the golden light screen in the sky. Accompanied by a strong spatial rhythm, the 4 names on the light screen were like rapidly spinning lanterns, flashing back and forth, mixing with each other. The hearts of the disciples from the various peak academies were in their throat. Thousands of pairs of eyes stared at the screen, none of them daring to even breathe loudly. Buzz, there was a slight tremor in the air. The first 2 names were the first to be fixed on the first row. Following that, the 2 names on the second row also fell into a state of stillness. Semi-finals. First match, Qi Qianying vs. Chu Hen. Second match, Pei Yi vs. Wang Li. Hua. An invisible airflow swept out in all directions, causing everyone's heartstrings to tremble faintly. Pei Yi and Wang Li could not help but look at each other from afar. It was as if there were stars bursting out from their eyes. The two people with the highest hopes of winning the championship actually met in the semifinals. While the crowd was shocked, they were also filled with anticipation. So senior sister Qianying will have to wait for one of them in the finals. How exciting! I can't wait. Pei Yi, Wang Li, old rivals. In the last sect battle, the two of them were fighting for the championship. In the end, Wang Li won. This time, the two met again in the semi-finals. It was really exciting. I'm afraid senior brother Wang Li is going to be the champion again. That's just what you think. Senior brother Pei Yi is the true king. This time, he will definitely aim for the championship. Whatever you say, senior brother Wang Li will definitely win. Senior brother Pei Yi is the strongest. Feeling the excitement of the crowd, Elder Lu smiled faintly. To be able to control the rhythm of the crowd was something to be proud of. Hee. It seems like everyone is looking forward to the second match of the semifinals. However, there must be an order to everything. Elder Lu raised his hand and pointed at Qi Qianying and Chu Hen. Then, let the first match of the semifinals begin. Begin. The one-sided support for Qi Qianying immediately erupted. Senior sister Qianying will win. Does this match even need to be played? I think it's time to advance. You can't say that. Although the opponent is weak, they still need to go through the motions. After all, Beichen Peak Academy hasn't entered the semifinals for several years. Chu Hen acted as if he did not hear the many taunts from the crowd. He lifted his gaze and looked in the direction of Qi Qianying. Big brother Chu Hen, do your best. Yi Yao cheered. Long Xuan, Zhao Qingyi, Wu Yan and the rest also looked at him expectantly. However, just as Chu Hen was about to step onto the stage, something unexpected suddenly happened. I forfeit. A voice that was as calm as the water in an ancient well was like an incomparably ferocious heavy hammer that directly smashed the minds of everyone present into a state of chaos. Chu Hen was also stunned. He stopped in his tracks and looked at Qi Qianying again. He saw that she had no intention of stepping onto the stage and did not even have the slightest fighting spirit. The crowd did not dare to believe what they had just heard. Was it a hallucination? Qi Qianying raised her eyebrows and said calmly, I don't really want to fight this match. Let's go straight to the second match. This time, everyone heard it clearly and clearly. In an instant, all sorts of uproars were heard. Everyone spread out their hands and their heads were full of question marks. Damn, is she poisoned? Can't we just continue with the competition? What the hell is senior sister Qianying doing? 3 matches in a row. Are all of them poisoned by Chu Hen? All sorts of curses were heard. Pei Yi and Wang Li were also surprised. Qiu Xingyi shook his head and smiled faintly. She's still so cold. She always ignores the feelings of others. Despite all sorts of discussions, Qi Qianying did not seem to care at all. Elder Lu frowned and said in a low voice, This is the semifinals. You're only one step away from the finals. Are you really going to give up? If you forfeit, you can only be fourth. Countless eyes stared at Qi Qianying, hoping that she would change her mind. However, she still acted like she did not care. Fourth is pretty good. Like everyone else, I really want to watch the second match as soon as possible. Forfeit? In the history of the sect, Qi Qianying was probably the only one who did that. Elder Lu had no choice but to look at Ao Yunzhuang, the master of East Xian Peak. However, Ao Yunzhuang's face was filled with helplessness. As the second genius disciple after Qiu Xingyi, he had a slight understanding of Qi Qianying. She had always done things in the opposite direction and out of everyone's expectations. Moreover, her reasons would often make people speechless. However, as long as it was decided, she would not change her mind. This was definitely a character that people loved and hated at the same time. After a moment of hesitation, Ao Yunzhuang nodded slightly. Elder Lu let out a sigh and announced, Qi Qianying of East Xian Peak School forfeit. The winner is Chu Hen of Beichen Peak School. Without a doubt, the crowd was booed on an unprecedented scale. Countless people shook their heads. Poison. It really was poison. There had been too many surprises in this year's sect battle. No one could get used to it. It's good that she forfeited. Everyone knows who's stronger and who's weaker. That's right. We can skip the semifinals and go straight to the finals. Senior brother Pei Yi will win. Senior brother Wang Li is the strongest. The crowd's disappointment was immediately swept away at the thought of the pinnacle battle between Wang Li and Pei Yi. It was as if they were entering the finals. In an instant, the cheers and shouts below the stage swept through the 9 heavens like a storm. Chu Hen was directly ignored by the crowd. We've advanced to the semi-finals. Why can't I feel happy at all? Wu Mian shrugged. His conflicted look made him feel like his heart was filled with cobwebs. Wu Yan, Zhao Qingyi, and the rest looked at each other, not knowing what to say. Their teacher had said that it was understandable for Yi Yao to forfeit. However, Qi Qianying did not seem to be familiar with Chu Hen. She had publicly forfeited in the semifinals, no less. This was a little confusing. Are you familiar with senior sister Qianying? Last year, when you asked her for the 5-leaf reindew grass, she ignored me no matter what. Later on, she inexplicably gave it to you. What kind of magic potion did you feed her? Wu Mian kept asking. The speaker did not mean anything, but the listener did. Yi Yao, Long Xuanxuang, Wu Yan, and the rest were stunned. Last year? What was going on? Chu Hen shook his head, indicating that he did not know either. There wasn't much time for them to talk. Amidst the thunderous commotion, 2 imposing figures stood proudly on the soaring cloud fighting ring, one on the east and one on the west. This scene was very familiar. Everyone felt as if they had returned to the finals of the sect battle. The Thousand Illusion Sacred Physique ranked second on the Heavenly Martial Leaderboard, and the Qilin Sacred Physique, ranked third on the Heavenly Martial Leaderboard, met again. It ignited the restless blood of countless people. You've become stronger. Wang Li put away her usual laziness, and a hint of seriousness surged between her brows. Pei Yi smiled coldly. It seems that the finals have come in advance. But unfortunately, the main character this time is not you. Wang Li raised her brows and replied with interest. I'm looking forward to it. I hope you won't disappoint me. Disappointed? As soon as the last 3 words fell, Wang Li instantly disappeared. Buzz, then, a ferocious undercurrent quietly surged towards Pei Yi. The latter's eyes turned cold. He turned around and punched out. Bang! With a loud sound, a violent wave of air spread out on the stage. The red scorching light and the silver illusory light swept out like a raging tsunami. The pupils of everyone in the audience trembled slightly. Soundless. Another momentum that soared to the 9 heavens.